Test, 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 test. Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Hope you guys are having a wonderful night. Hope you guys have had a great weekend. Thank you so much for all the folks who stopped by and participated in the Clear Obscure Scream on Thursday. It's been really good getting back into it. Really enjoying going through it. As always, thank you for the support as well on last week's Naruto debate stream. It was a bit experimental. It was the first time I'd done something quite like that. And I see we got quite a few views, which I really appreciate. I hope you guys got something positive out of it, despite me being like pretty critical throughout. My hope slash my goal was to just provide like a resource for people who want to just understand like some of the pitfalls of debating a little bit better, as opposed to just talking about the Naruto world itself. But tonight we're going back to a discussion of general Naruto stuff. Something that I've noticed when people talk about um, Naruto, specifically about like the debates between Pain and other characters, is that Pain will get kind of slandered, like low key, when it comes to his supposed anti feats during the Sage Naruto fight during the Konoha village assault. And so I think that, you know, we tend, just as human beings, like this isn't calling anybody out in particular, because I do the same shit too, right? But just as human beings, we have a tendency to filter information in a certain way and kind of focus on specific details over other details. So if we notice like a whole bunch of not particularly dramatic moments where Naruto just kind of gets pushed back and nothing really happens, we might filter those out. But remember the few moments where he defeats a path. And so, because those are kind of hyped up, those kind of get like a full page spread or something like that, those moments will stick out more clearly in our memory. And I think, given that the overall like tone, theme, however you want to phrase it, of this chapter is Naruto reaching a level that surpasses people like Jiraiya and Kakashi, the emphasis is on him being the strongest, right? The emphasis is on him kind of dominating the opposition and saving the village and being the hero. He's finally kind of stepped into the Goku role almost, right? Like he's no longer just one member, like a mid-ranking member of a military organization of which he is a soldier. Right now, he's an exceptional member, and he's possibly, he's definitely the upper echelon in terms of overall strength, even compared to people who are much more experienced, have much more like many more battles behind them, so to speak. He's the one who's like carrying the day. That being said, Pain is still way stronger than him, like overall, pound for pound at this point. Um, and so, uh, excuse me, I want to try to identify some points of confusion and try to explain just some context, right? This isn't calling anybody stupid or anything, but this is just saying, like, let's look at the whole fight overall rather than just calling attention to specific moments. And let's talk about how the sort of accumulated efforts of the characters like present themselves over the course of the fight. And as you can see, like right off the bat, before Naruto even starts engaging with Pain, we gotta take account of the fact that he's got three giant frogs with him, a medium-sized frog, which Gamakichi doesn't really do anything, so he doesn't really need to be counted, but he's there. And Katsuyu is gonna join him in a second. We see Pa there. Ma is somewhere as well. I think she's off screen because she just summoned these frogs in, right? And she did like a reverse summoning to pull them all over here. Um, so yeah, basically, we're gonna just go take a look at the fight and see if I can help identify some points of confusion, maybe clear those up. Of course, anybody who is watching or in the comments below, if you're watching this video back after the fact, feel free to challenge me on any of this stuff. It's an open discussion. If you have any questions or anything that you want me to dive into, I'm more than happy to. If you want to ask questions about other topics, feel free. My focus is going to be on this tonight, but I'm happy to just talk about like whatever related to Naruto games or whatever. So with that being said, I also want to apologize in advance. I am sick. I thought it was just like post-vaccine recovery. Like I got my flu shot, and usually you'll be like quote unquote sick for a couple days after that. But um, like a doofus, I also decided to go bowling while my immune system was, already dealing with that, and so my level of fatigue, I think, exposed me to something. I'm not feeling super great, so I am going to try to sniffle with my mic muted or at least out of the way. But please forgive me in advance if I wind up being a little gross tonight, Not much I can do about it. Um, that being said, thank you for your patience. Thank you for stopping by, and we're gonna get right into it in just a second. I see Saria is here, of course. Hello, Saria. I'm really glad to see you. I hope you're doing well. Um, I hope that you're. Is this like the first full week that you've completed at the internship at this point? Um, Super fucking cool that you have that opportunity. Of course, I'd love to hear more about how things have been going. I hope you said at one point that um, things were like was it the second day that you basically were just like shadowing or whatnot, and it wasn't as fun. Hopefully things picked up a little bit since then. One sec, I'm gonna mute up while I blow my nose. Sorry. Unless you really want like balding game developer blows his nose ASMR. I'm gonna probably try to do that shit off mic. Um. Anyway, so let's get started with the discussion. Um, One of the most important things to keep in mind here, and so I'm gonna say something that's probably gonna be kind of annoying, and I want to acknowledge that up front, is that I'm about to say the forbidden words, like the most annoying words, the equivalent of like playing Stairway to Heaven in a guitar store, right? Pain was holding back for most of the fight against the village and against Naruto. Now, the reason why I say that phrase is like, you know, it's sort of the equivalent of playing the that for the lick in jazz, like the da 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 da, right? It's like it's not like you can't use it. It's not like you can't say that phrase, but it is one of the most annoying and like, um, I guess, like, um, what's the what's the phrase that I could use? It's just like throws caltrops, so to speak. It's just like pocket sand, right? It's just one of those things that doesn't really contribute much to a debate, but it can shut things down and grind things to a halt. Because if I say, for example, well, Pain, you know, was going up against Sage Naruto, and they were about even, and then you say, "Oh, well, here Sage Naruto kicks Pain and clearly does some damage to him, so he's relative. You know, they have some kind of relativity." And then I counter by saying, "Oh, well, Pain was holding back the whole time, so he could have been way stronger." I mean, it's true. It's true that Pain may have some kind of reserve power, some reserve force, speed, etc., that he's just not using. And in fact, it is certain that he is withholding his pure killing intent. In other words, he has moments in this fight where he's absolutely capable of killing Naruto and he chooses not to. So it is likely, I think, that he is withholding like full killing force on every single blow. He is specifically trying not to kill Naruto. Similarly for Itachi, when Itachi fights Sasuke, you know, he is explicitly trying not to kill him. So all of the feats, all the mistakes he makes, all the times he gets hit, all the anti-feats, I should have said, um, you need to kind of keep in mind, to be fair, to stick with the narrative, that all of this is happening under the umbrella of him not really using his full combat force. However, in a debate, the annoying thing is that you can use that to sort of shut down a conversation, and it doesn't actually and like, you know, this is redundant, but it doesn't actually advance anything, doesn't really progress the conversation, because unless we know how much he was holding back, that doesn't really give us a whole lot of information to work with, right? Like, we know Itachi was sick during the fight with Sasuke, so we can say safely that if he were healthy, he probably would have. If he were healthy and he were going up against an opponent that he was bloodlusted against, he would show even greater feats. But how many more uses of the Amaterasu would he get before he lost his blindness? How much more dexterity and would he have? How much more reactive? How better would his reflexes be, etc.? It's really hard, if not impossible, to tell. Right. So when I say Pain was holding back, it's true. It is a fact that he was withholding some of his strength, and so Pain as a character is stronger than what we see him doing here. He puts himself at a disadvantage, and he withholds his power, and this winds up having long-term effects. Even if you want to argue that at the end of the fight he's going all out for that phase of the fight, by the time he gets there, he has already put himself at a disadvantage based on how he's acted earlier in the fight. So the prime Pain, the perfect Pain that's acting in full unlimited, untethered, unshackled battle mode, we don't really get to see. Even during the Edo fight, we don't really get to see him in his prime because he's being fucked with by Kabuto. So that is a fact, and that is something to keep in mind. That being said, I'm not going to try to argue that Pain is like the beneficiary of some sort of NLF, no limits fallacy, right? Just because he says that he can make a Chibaku Tensei, or implies that he can make a Chibaku Tensei that's larger than the one that he used on Eight Tails Naruto, that doesn't mean he can necessarily like encapsulate full on like 100% Kurama in it. Right? Just because he can make one that is bigger doesn't mean that we can assume any particular arbitrary size. So, for the purposes of casual reading, of just enjoying the series, of not like getting into this competitive debate bullshit, which by the way, none of us actually has to do, it's perfectly fine to imagine Pain however strong you want him to be, you know, in terms of headcanon. In terms of a debate, though, if you're actually like formulating arguments and trying to state hypotheses and state like positive assertions and then back that up with evidence, I do think it's important to realize that while you can speculate about that stuff, unless you can actually bring some sort of calc or figure to the table, then just saying, well, my guy is even stronger than even you ever saw, even, and so he's even stronger than your guy, it's not very helpful. It doesn't really progress the conversation, and that goes both ways, right? Like, Kakazu was just playing with his food. He was just toying with Naruto, and he could have speed blitzed him and killed him anytime he wanted to. Maybe, but that didn't happen. And so if you're going to argue that proactively, positively in a debate, you have to bring some evidence to support that, right? Just as a couple of random examples. So that being said, in a second here, I want to establish what the context is for Pain going into this fight. And we're going to go over this extremely briefly because we, basically, I just want to talk about the Asura path very quickly. And, excuse me, mention that before we start talking about the rest of the fight. Because there's two key things to keep in mind about Pain's chakra consumption and his fatigue before he starts fighting Naruto. That being said, we have done an extensive series on understanding the battles that lead up to the Naruto fight, so please feel free to look under the live section if you're watching this back later and you want to just check out, you want some information, you want some context on these parts of the fight before the arrival of Naruto. We have a bunch of information about that. Let me blow my nose and then I'll respond to Saria's message and then we'll get going. 1 sec. Oh, you say, sorry, it says, oh no, I wasn't working. You were with your sister. Oh, okay, sorry. I thought you said you were like with an intern or something and you were basically just had to like sit there and watch them all day or something like that. So, sorry, I didn't mean to like backward slander your sister. How is your sister and how are the kiddos adjusting to the new place? Are they enjoying the new setup and all that? Seems like it felt like they were maybe kind of eager to check out the new area and all that. I hope they're integrating well. I hope they're feeling good about everything. Okay, so the two things that I wanted to point out are that when Pain is assaulting the village, right, this should be incredibly obvious, but let's just go back to the very start very briefly and just keep in mind that, the characters are searching for Naruto. They're gathering intel and they're, splitting up their attention. They're taking the time, the individual paths are taking the time to isolate particular individuals, to hold them up, to interrogate them, to talk to them, to give them an opportunity to be honest, in the form of the whatchamacallit, the Naraka path, right? The human path, when he rips out Shizune's soul, before he does so, he actually says like, hey, you guys don't move or I will kill her. Right, and we can look at that in a second. So basically he negotiates sort of with the other people around him, and he's not just like immediately pulling out her soul the moment he gets there, because he's still scanning for information. When Pain shows up, he explains in chapter 419 that he's specifically allocating certain paths to diversion, other paths to hunting, and so he is very specifically, very deliberately dividing up his attention. And even here, when the Asura path starts firing his missiles around, like, he's not really targeting anyone in specific. He's not like going directly for an enemy ninja and assassinating him, right? Like skewering with him with his tail, like trying to be stealthy. He is specifically causing panic, explosions, distractions. He's putting civilians in danger to divert resources and attention from um, from the normal sort of military operations to try and like divide and conquer, essentially. Hopefully that made some sense. Now that being said, this is a smart tactic, right? It might be the case that if Pain walked into the village and just started fighting straight up without doing any of this stuff, assuming he didn't just immediately use a Chibaku Tensei on the whole village or something like that, right? That if all of the military might of Konoha came right at him, that he might be in more of a disadvantage than if he split his attention up. But what I want to set the stage for, sorry for the chewing, I'm taking a cough drop. What I want to set the stage for is that Pain does have some anti-feats, quote unquote, in this segment of the fight, but the anti-feats occur under the context of him splitting up his forces, not going all out, diverting his attention, etc., etc., etc. So it's just worth noting that the anti-feats that he experiences here won't necessarily apply to a one-on-one when he's specifically fighting like one other character like Naruto at a time, or even like a smaller group of people at the same time, right? Like, here's another example where he's like sort of speaking pretty calmly with Iruka without actually destroying him. He kind of chats with Kakashi. He basically lets Iruka get away over here. Doesn't go all out against Kakashi, has an opportunity to Shinra Tensei him immediately, instead just like chats with him, etc., etc. So when he winds up, getting dodged, like a Kakashi, what happens here? He tries to kick Kakashi, or is it vice versa? Yeah, so he looks like he tries to kick Kakashi. Kakashi dodges him. Keep in mind that he doesn't have all the paths with him. He's not necessarily going all out. He's happy to just kind of chill with Kakashi for a little while. So it's worth noting that if you're going to use that as an anti-feat, like Pain is not able to keep up with Kakashi. And I've heard some people say this, right? They've said all you need to establish relativity is one feat. All you need to establish relativity is one event of two characters, like showing some kind of comparative speed or power. But I don't think that's the case here, because you have to keep that context of, well, how much was Pain holding back? It might be the case, it might literally be the case that they're the same exact speed, but it might also be the case that that is not true because of the context here. And especially when you take into account the fact that, the paths share a field of vision. And as we can see in just a second here, when Pain comes up behind the Asura path and tries to strike it, the Asura path is able to get out of the way, specifically because it's sharing a field of vision with Tendo, right? Now imagine if there were 4 other paths present, as well as the animal paths, and they're all sharing the same field of vision. Well, those blind spots go down dramatically. Keeping in mind that, like, Naruto, when he kills Kakazu, or kills 2 of his hearts, Naruto, when he takes out the Naraka path and stuff like that, when he's fighting Pain, he uses smoke bombs and diversions and flanks and stuff like that. And Pain, because he's in a defensive posture, is like basically just looking forward. Like, he's not really covering his 6 in a way that he is doing here for the Asura path. So all these little details, they seem like minor things, but they all need to be taken into account when evaluating, Pain's like hypothetical peak combat performance and all that stuff. Sorry. So let me catch up on chat real quick. Saria says everyone's doing well, especially because schooling is essentially over. Not literally, but it basically is the end of the year. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Everyone else loves like California, everyone but me. I feel like Tusk. Do you mean the Kevin Smith horror movie Tusk? That's a deep cut, man. I still haven't seen that, but yeah, that's it's pretty crazy. I'll have to check that out if you recommend it. Hey, Kakazu in Holidays, how's it going? It's good to see you. Kakazu in Holiday says, hello, I wonder what would happen if the human Rask tries to reap the soul of Kakazu's mask. Human Path tried to reap the soul of Kakazu's mask. Yeah, so I think we talked about this before, and I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it. One of them is, it really just comes down to how the jutsu works, like how the Ningen no jutsu works. So when let's look really quick at chapter, was it 551, when Edo Nagato is pulling out KCM Naruto's soul. What he does is he puts his hand directly on Naruto's chest and pulls out what appears to be his soul, or his oh, tusk for killer instinct. Okay, you can see that my repertoire of tusk references are too obscure to hang with the cool kids. Um, but yeah, so here he's pulling out Naruto's soul. And what happens is he just kind of puts his hand on Naruto's chest and it pulls out his own soul, right? He doesn't take the time to, like, it doesn't look like he's pulling out Kurama's chakra specifically. I mean, granted, I'm not 100% sure this is canon, but assuming that the coloration here is correct, right? The chakra, or the shit that he's pulling out, is different from the color of the chakra that Naruto has surrounded himself with. And so we even see, I think, what looks like a little Naruto face in his soul, like right here. It kind of looks like Naruto's own face. So I do think that this is, yeah, we see it here too. This is Naruto's soul, which is separate from the KCM chakra that's surrounding him. So if that's the case, the question remains, if Kakuzu has Nagato touch his chest like this, if Kakuzu does actually have like 5 trapped souls inside his body, or even just like 4 trapped souls and then his own soul, or maybe even 6 souls, it's the 5 hearts that he has if they're all from other ninja, and then he has his own soul in there, which one is Nagato going to get? Well, in that case, I think it's not entirely clear. It's possible that he winds up getting Kakuzu's soul directly, but if he just like reaches in and pulls out some soul, like the human path connects with whatever soul it touches first, then it's possible that he would just get one of the other ones and wind up pulling that one out as well. Or it's possible that like and when I say possible, what I mean is like I'm generating hypotheses. I don't know if any of these actually work out, right? I'm just imagining like, well, what are some potential explanations? So then Naruto, like Nagato might just be turning on like a soul vacuum cleaner or something that like pulls every single soul, like magnetically attracts all soul energy from the opponent, in which case all of Kakuzu's souls come out at once. It's hard to say which of those hypotheses work the best. The only one we really have precedent for is him pulling out one soul at a time. So if I were in a debate, I would have to like constrain myself to the idea that Nagato could only pull one soul out at a time, because that's all we see him do in character. And given that, if I conceded that Kakuzu has multiple souls, if I could be convinced of that, then I would say it would be like a probability, right? Like Nagato would have like a 1 in 5 chance to pull out a soul, which I think is something that Noodles argued too back in his like Weeaboo Warrior debate. As a casual like reader, though, I think it's open to interpretation. I think there's multiple ways you could speculate on how that potentially works. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is that there is another way that Pain can use this ability. And we see it with Shizune, and we see it with that other nameless... Well, no, he's not nameless, actually. He does have a name in the mini jutsu files, but the other Konoha Shinobi that gets his soul extracted that we just saw. But let's look at Shizune, because it's a more, like, prominent example, so to speak, right? So, when he extracts Shizune's soul, the first thing he does is he touches her head, and it looks like she's kind of like paralyzed. I think she even drools a little. Yeah, she goes like, right? So her mind is being hacked into. She's like low-key stunned or paralyzed or something, and he is able to read her thoughts like almost in an instant, in a second, right? So, and then transmit that information. So if he touches Kakuzu's head, I think what's probably going to happen is that, assuming that Kakuzu has a brain, right, then the same thing is going to happen. He's going to have a direct connection to Kakuzu's mind, to Kakuzu's like essence, soul, whatever, however it works. And since he's going to have that direct connection, he's then going to be able to pull out the soul directly. If for some reason he winds up Pain winds up connecting with another one of Kakuzu's like trapped souls, then he's immediately going to be like, wait a minute, this isn't fucking Kakuzu, I know who this guy is. And he's going to be like, wait, shit, this isn't the right one, and he's going to swap over. So over the okay, over the course of a debate, I would say it's sort of hard to prove how it works exactly because we're only given a few like scattered details. The jutsu are kind of wrapped up in mystery. I mean, they're called forbidden jutsu and hidden jutsu for a reason, right? Like we don't have full transparency into how they work. I think a valid hypothesis and the one that's most consistent with what we see in the manga is that if pain touches a person, he connects with their individual soul, the person that he's connecting with, and then he will extract that soul. Um, Especially if he touches somebody's head, that is the precedent we see. That's how we see it working. I can like agree that Kakuzu is a bit of a weird case, and it would come down to evaluating like how those things inside of him actually work. Uh, to answer your question, sorry, that's a very good question. Sorry, asks, what if it's one soul and multiple hearts? It might be. I think we've talked about before, and this is something that Kakuzu and Holidays kind of helped me come around on. Is that in what is it 330 or something? There's one. So initially, when I heard Noodles say that Kakuzu had like different souls in him, I thought it was really dumb. And I had like a very strong like backlash against it, for lack of a better word. But then, like kind of rereading it and talking about it with y'all on stream, I noticed this one particular moment where the first time Kakuzu loses one of his hearts to Kakashi, it then kind of like rides on the ground, like so it roars independently of Kakuzu, and then it like goes on the ground and whimpers, right? So this is a very like personality laden gesture. This is a moment where we see some genuine, what appears to me anyway to be genuine fear and genuine recognition of like pending mortality from this thing. Now, how much cognition does this thing have? Well, it's represented by a mass of black threads, that are sometimes referred to as tentacles or cables or whatever, but like goopy organic black threads that have an animal mask associated with them. And given their this one has wings, like given their overall appearance and their like gait and their posture, especially with this one over here, I think a valid interpretation of these creatures is that they are simply golems, right? They're essentially like summoned creatures, like familiars. The thing that is alive is actually the mask. The mask is powered by the life force of the heart. And so the way that these things work is that Kakuzu just like diverts some of his threads, assigns it to the mask. The mask needs a heart to be powered up. The mask has its own personality and something like that to it. And then the mask just becomes like a golem that's like following his orders, like summoning an elemental in Skyrim or something like that. Now, does an elemental have a soul, or is it? Well, I think in Skyrim it actually does. I think you can get soul stones from them, or like get trap their souls in soul stones. But like in general, in different mythology and different lore, do they necessarily have souls? I don't know. Do they have souls here? I don't know. But that's just one interpretation. But an interpretation that I actually prefer, and I don't know if I could prove this, I don't know if I could win a debate about this, but one that I prefer based on talking to you guys about this before, is the idea that when Kakuzu takes somebody's heart, a bit of their residual life force and a bit of their cognition stays within the heart, and they get imprisoned in the mask and sort of forced to inhabit the mask. So they can't talk, they can't like do whatever they want, like they couldn't sit down and necessarily play cards with you or whatever, or tell you what their favorite food is, but there is some amount of cognition, kind of vaguely like an Edo Tensei, right, where like they are brought back to life and their heart is used as sort of like a weird meat puppet, in which case I think it is indeed possible that they're part of their soul lingers on. I don't know if it's a full soul, I don't know if it's like a fully cognizant person, but when this happens, I have to think that there's something like that, right? If animals in Naruto have souls, then this animal-like creature probably has some kind of a soul in it as well. 1 second, sorry. For better for worse, I don't think there's actually a specific extremely clear explanation. I think it's up to interpretation. It's something that's fun to speculate about as well, right? Because it's it's a really interesting, really unique jutsu, and it's fun to think about kind of how it works. Um, Also, wait a minute. Does this? So, oh, I see. It's like this light blue mask and then the darker blue mask over here. Okay, gotcha. Yep, yep. So, hopefully that answers the question. Um, in my opinion, like again, outside of a debate, my opinion is that they have residual life force in them, and it's not the equivalent of an entire human soul. But remember, like Minato can store like a part of himself inside Naruto, despite the fact that his soul is in the belly of the Reaper. His soul is also partially in Naruto and cognizant and able to hold a conversation with him. And I think he remembers having met Naruto, even though he's in the Reaper, he's also able to remember this conversation that he had with Naruto inside his own like mental dimension or whatever. So yeah, I think it's quite feasible that the souls could be like split up a little bit, right? So like, let's say that this guy's name was Jeff. Jeff the ninja when he was alive, and he died because Kakuzu took out his heart. I do think that like Jeff basically goes to the Pure Land, and if Kabuto wanted to summon Edo Tensei Jeff, he could, and Jeff could be like standing back there. But then also part of Jeff's soul would still be inside this. That's kind of how I think it works. But I'm not sure. Sorry, it says, I don't know if a heart carries a soul. Is that a thing? Yeah, it's like, it's weird because characters have souls that are represented by like those weird little colored humanoid avatars, but we're also told about like mental slash spiritual energy, and um, the mental slash spiritual energy is described in kind of like a weird vague thing that it's like a vague way that's like the accumulated experiences and mental fortitude and stuff that you have in your life become energy. So there definitely seems to be, and then there's like life force where Nagato, when he fully drains himself, like, when he like uses the Rinne rebirth after the Naruto fight, he loses the vitality from his face and his hair goes white and all that, and he has to like get it back from recovering chakra from B here. Like we can see him go from this emaciated white-haired state, and like he's all shriveled up even as an Edo Tensei, to then draining B's chakra, and not only does his hair color come back, like his face also fills in, he gets more muscular and stuff like that. He just looks more powerful, he has a stronger stance. So, and yeah, his mobility is limited. So like it seems like your body can kind of go through multiple states of being drained on a physical level and on like an energetic level, if that makes sense. How much of that is coming from your soul? I don't know. Dan, when he gets freed from his Edo Tensei body, flies in ghost form, so like in soul form, which looks like him wearing clothes including ninja garb. Flies all the way over to Tsunade, gives her chakra back, essentially, like gives her his chakra, restores her chakra, and then goes away as a soul. So like in ghost mode, he becomes a traveling soul and chakra, and then gives his chakra to Tsunade, and then goes to the Pure Land as a soul. When what's her name? Ino transfers into people's minds is described as a discharge of spiritual energy, whatever the fuck that means, right? So like, I think that in Naruto, largely speaking, there are two vague concepts of soul or spirit. One is the actual essence of who you are as a person, including like your mind, your experiences, your memories, all of that stuff. And that is the essence of you that goes on to the next world or can be reincarnated. But then there's also like spiritual force, spiritual energy, which is something derived from the soul that can be made, like taken from the soul or like channeled through the soul. I don't exactly know how to describe it. And then that combines with physical energy to make chakra. And that spiritual force, that spiritual energy can be manifested in apportioned in different ways. But I don't know. I'd have to go back through the data books and fucking check. Maybe when I'm a little more lucid too. Uh, Kakuzu and Holiday says Kakuzu doesn't have a brain. No, I think he does have a brain. Like he's able to figure some stuff out. You got to give your boy credit, man. Nameless Chopper. It's actually some pretty spicy slander there. Hey, how's it going? How about no? Hope you're doing well. How about No says Databook and JP does state not only can you not move, but it becomes utterly impossible to speak a single word by your own will, which is consistent with the human path having a paralyzing effect. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I'm torn about that stuff because like I think the fourth data book also says that like the Asura Path's missiles are a certain death attack. It describes the Shinra Tensei as being the divine hand of God that can repel anything in creation. And as much as I want to like sit here and glaze paint all day, I'm currently working on a like standalone video, the thesis statement of which is that like most of the shit in the data books is just like way inaccurate. You know, it's like it's written for fun rather than to be like extremely precise. Granted, there's some entries that like Choji likes to Choji likes to eat barbecue. He also likes to eat chips. Also, he is the most glorious, rotund perfection and the incarnation of chubby goodness. And it's like, okay, well, one of these things is not like the other. You know, maybe one of these statements is meant to be taken not as seriously. The fact that like he is like perfectly pleasantly plump or whatever, the fact that that might be a little tongue-in-cheek doesn't necessarily invalidate the fact that he likes barbecue potato chips, right? Some parts can be true, other parts cannot be true, or you know, there's nuance. We have to kind of be careful about how we break things down. But I'm a little hesitant to ever give any character like a no limits fallacy style attribute, right? So I don't believe that Pain's almighty push could literally push anything in creation out of the way. Similarly, I do think that it's possible, hypothetically, for somebody to resist the Ningendo's soul steal. I think you know, especially since like Kabuto spends an entire arc being like, ah ha ha ha, the Edo Tensei has no weaknesses, it's perfect, it's flawless, and then Madara's like, actually go fuck yourself, and he just decides to cancel it because he feels like it, right? Like I think, and then he just decides to have his soul not leave his body, right? Like, there's probably some people who can get around it, but yeah, for the most part, as a general description, I agree. It seems to have a paralytic effect. You can't move, you can't really do anything unless you're like one of these crazy exceptions. You're not going to be able to do shit. Pain's going to read your mind, and then when he's done with you, your soul is just going to leave. I think it specifically says something along the lines, the soul is guided calmly to heaven or gently to heaven. So it's not even like he's doing this tug of war thing like he seems to be doing with Naruto. He literally just sort of like passively calmly releases it and it just leaves, right? It's described as being like a divine miracle, if I remember correctly. Like, let's just take a look actually. Now, is Pain literally a divine deity that's sent from another like plane of existence, who's a reincarnation of a, obviously not, right? So we need to take some of these things with a grain of salt. But you know, like instant contact between minds, you can uphold your opponent's soul in your palm and then steal it. Instant death, even if the victim tries to resist, the opponent's information is deciphered. A power that is almost a divine miracle. All the person's thoughts without exception are offered to the user, a completely inhuman jutsu, right? So like I really do want to kind of use this as glaze fodder, but at the same time, to be fair, you know, keeping in mind that the phrase divine miracle, Pain isn't literally divine. That's kind of a bit of a fudgery. But yeah, I think you're basically on the right track. I'm on this whole fucking thing right now about data books, so I'm kind of like in that mindset, so to speak. I forgot your name is Jeff. That's actually, or are you talking about the like my name's Jeff, like that that meme? I can just see like one of those Edos in the background doing that. One second. I'm sorry to hear that you're sick as well. How about no? Hope you feel better soon. It really sucks. I thought I was being all responsible and shit. Like I took it easy for a couple of days and I was like feeling better, and then it just came back around and got me. How about no also says Orochimaru also sort of splits his soul. Yeah, exactly. Splits his soul into each curse mark. Chakra lets you divide things like that. Same with clones. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. Well, that's a good question too. It's like the clones that Naruto makes are solid and physical. They have real bodies and they are sentient. They're cognizant, right? Like they can retain memories and they can make their own decisions. They can have like fights with each other and shit. I think somebody was talking about this recently, maybe here or on another stream, that like Boruto's clones especially like give themselves, like in the anime, like they give themselves names or something, like they have distinct personalities, and then those personalities will come back and like keep progressing their own like little timelines, so to speak. So I'm not sure if that's true, but if it is, like, then yeah, that opens up a whole other line of discussion about like the ethics of clone jutsu and stuff like that. Actually, I wish I could find it. I saw this great video last year that was talking about like, if Naruto's clones are sentient, does Naruto have a right to like create and destroy life, like the way that he does with the clones? Like, um, think about every time you step into, so supposedly every time you step into like a teleporter in Star Trek, what's happening is your body is getting broken down on the molecular or atomic level at the in end of the transporter, and then it's getting reassembled at the other end. So technically speaking, what's happening is that you're dying, um, and getting completely broken down, but then you're getting reassembled on the other side. And some people think of it as like, well, you've just been physically translocated, but other people are like, no, you just died and then got cloned, right? And so, like, anytime any character goes into a teleporter in Star Trek, that character is dead. And then the person who comes out the other side is a completely brand new person. Now, it just so happens that they have all of the memories up until like the nanosecond that they died, and so they are effectively the same person. But then there's one episode where like something happens with the transporter, and like the original person doesn't go through, like Riker doesn't go through, he stays where he was before, but the transporter at the end does actually assemble him. So now the original Riker is there, and also there's a new one who thinks he is the original, and so it's like kind of confirmed, I think, that that's what's happening. So when Naruto instantiates his clones, like, he could very well be creating basically the equivalent of a Star Trek transporter output person, and then he just destroys them anytime he's done with them. So the ethics of that are like kind of bizarre when you break it down. Yeah. How about No also says Taiyu's ghost. Oh yeah, Taiyu's ghost jutsu are also called souls because they're only made out of the spiritual energy or chakra. Similar statements are made about Ino's mind transfer being the soul. Yeah, that makes sense too. I think they're just like, isn't it like they're purely spiritual energy or pure chakra, which is why they hunger for physical energy, and that's why they kind of like devour any chakra they come up against, something like that. I'm not remembering the exact verbiage, but yeah, I think I know what you're talking about there. Um, Kakazuan Holidays, aka Jeff, says, if the hearts could speak, it would be hilarious with Hidan. Oh, yeah, exactly. The hearts just trash talk back. I actually kind of like that. I like the idea of, like, if somebody ever does, like, a Naruto abridged, like Dragon Ball Z abridged, if you haven't seen Dragon Ball Z abridged, when Piccolo absorbs Nail, the idea is that, like, Nail's personality and consciousness should just merge with Piccolo, and they become, like, a new person that's based on both of them, essentially, right? But in DBZA, they have Nail's voice and consciousness linger on inside Piccolo's head, like he's living in his apartment. His brain's his apartment, has like pool and pinball and shit in his brain. Um, and then the same thing happens with Kami, right? When he absorbs Kami, now he's got two people living in his head. And it's really funny. He has arguments with them sometimes. The other characters then are like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? So I can just imagine Kakazu walking around with like these four or five other internal personalities, just like bickering with himself. Okay, so that being said, what I hope I've established thus far is that, going into the fight against Naruto, there's just some important background, some important context to keep in mind. Pain starts off having sustained some damage, right? Like, he got hit, the Naraka path got hit by Konohamaru's Rasengan. Now, personally, I don't think that did any discernible damage, right? I don't think it really hurt him. It just kind of knocked him over for a second. But he did get hit by it. Excuse me. The Asura path was destroyed by Kakashi. So I don't know how much chakra you think the Asura path's missiles actually cost to fire, or how much chakra it uses to jump around and fight and stuff. But its tail has been damaged. Its tail was chipped, and it's expended some of its arsenal of missiles. So, like, assuming that those missiles are actually physical things, they're ammunition, like kunai or whatever that Pain has a store of, he's used up some of his ammo. And now, he's summoned some of his animals. Sakura actually one-shots the centipede, so the centipede is down. Every time he summons an animal, that costs a lot of chakra. Now, granted, I don't think it puts Pain at a disadvantage per se, because I think he has enough chakra that it doesn't really matter. But he does summon the dog. He summons the rhino and the bull, or the Taurus or whatever, right? And he's still taking the time, like while his other paths are out there putting themselves at risk, having this extended battle across the village. He's still taking the time to lecture Tsunade, right? And basically just sort of like, oh yeah, there's the sort of purple colored soul again. To lecture Tsunade and to like engage in this back and forth and just not get all totally bloodlusted. So now in chapter 429, he decides to use this attack on the entire village. What I'll say here is that I think that if Pain were fighting in the most like optimal way possible, so to speak, right? Like he just decided, okay, my goal here is just to assassinate everybody in the village, and just go through one by one and kill every single person I find. This is definitely one way he could do it, right? Just like hovering up in the air and basically like nuking the whole place. He could also potentially have done that with the Chibaku Tensei. But this specific jutsu, as Karin, no, not Karin, I'm sorry. Why am I blanking on her name? The angel lady. I can picture her in my head. What the fuck is wrong with me? I just saw her too. What is wrong with my brain? It's just like not. What the fuck is it? Conan, thank you. Thank you. How about no? I don't know why my brain was just like, this person has no name. So stupid. But yeah, like, so Conan, warns him about it. So he doesn't really have to do this either. When he does it, he makes a choice. One sec, sorry. When he does this, he makes a choice, and his choice is, I'm going to do this thing that requires me to expose myself to hover up in midair, and like in a big exposed position, and to specifically allocate all of my chakra into this one massive attack, which is very powerful, and it has its advantages, but it also has disadvantages. So he thinks Naruto at this time is up on Mount Miyaboku, right? Like he just got that intel from Shizune, from scanning her mind. So he doesn't think Naruto's here. He doesn't think Naruto's going to fight him and being like super like a super imminent threat. He doesn't know anything about him like getting sage mode or whatever. So he thinks he'll just be able to destroy the village safely. This is like him overexerting himself because he thinks he's won. If he thought he was going to be having another climactic battle right after this, he might not have done this. He might have, because this might be still a great way to get a lot of people out of the way and eliminate opposition. So he might have. Or he might have used lower grade versions of it. I'm not sure. The point that I want to emphasize here is, most people already know this, but Conan specifically says that jutsu will shorten your life. When Pain uses it, he's also putting himself at a disadvantage because he's not going to be able to use Shima Tensei and Bancho Tenin for a while. And it's worth noting just how powerful those jutsu are in terms of his overall combat efficacy. We'll see in a second that like when he goes from not having Shinra Tensei and Banjo Tenin in the Naruto fight to having them back, the entire dynamic of the fight changes. He goes from being defensive and basically accomplishing nothing and barely getting by to kicking Naruto's ass, like, immediately. They are by far his bread and butter, like, most reliable jutsu in terms of, like, overall combat efficacy, and not having them at the start of the fight is a massive disadvantage, right? Sorry, says John, trying to figure out a name without looking at his chat. Yeah, I saw out of the corner of my eye, I saw something scroll up, and I was like, I can't capitulate. I can't be like this far gone. I need to remember this fucking person's name. But I appreciate the assist there. How about no? Underrated speed feat for Shinra Tensei. It cratering the village happened before the summoning jutsu finished. Yeah, that's a very good point. I do think that, like, the amount of force, I mean, like, so sorry, I was listening to Noodles' debate with Bubbles recently, and he made that point again, that he thinks the Shinra Tensei is a gravity wave, or that it uses gravity waves. I remember we talked about this a little while ago. If it's not annoying, would you mind reminding me, like, when I said that out loud in your presence before, I think you got super pissed. You were like, "It's not a fucking gravity wave." Like you really didn't like that. So can you remind me what was it that you objected to about the use of that phrase? Um, from my reading of the data books and the manga, I've seen it described as being similar to the magnetic laws of repulsion and attraction, right? So if we go to Shinra Tensei over here, right, it says using repulsive gravitational force generated in the user's hands. Um, I forget. It must be Kakashi who calls it like similar to attraction and repulsion. Let's go take a look at what Kakashi says, or maybe it's Choji, but yeah, like I don't recall them ever saying gravity wave, and I think a gravity wave is a very specific thing, right? So it seems to me like whenever Pain activates the jutsu, it just starts. It just like immediately takes effect and applies like an accelerative or inertia driven force. I don't know what the right term for it is, right? But it just applies a force immediately uh, at the target where it was generated, if that makes sense. So like if he points his hand towards like a big ass, I don't know, towards a wall, towards a mud wall, right? And then he activates the jutsu. It's not like a beam of particles or like a compression rarefaction wave in the atmosphere occurs and then like one of the oscillations hits the wall after a few moments or whatever. It literally just immediately applies a rapidly increasing, almost like explosive force on the wall and pushes it away, right? That's how I think it works, but I'm not sure. How about No says, who me? No, that's a fine enough assumption. It's just that the speed that the matter being pushed itself would be slower anyway. Yeah, because the force itself, like, the thing has to be accelerated, right? Like, the force that's being applied to it has to displace its mass. It has to apply, like, acceleration to it to send it, like, on a vector in a given direction at a given velocity. So, yeah, I think that makes sense. But I'm just not sure if it's, like, technically a wave or whatever. What Choji says, he can attract target objects to himself and he can repel all ninjutsu attacks. I'm pretty sure that Kakashi says something about magnetic. The word magnetic is stuck in my head. I want to see if there's actually some validity to that, or if I just made that shit up. I'm into like crypto amnesia it from somewhere. Let's see. I have to do some of his skills. His jutsu allows him to pull in or push objects away, similar to the magnetic laws of attraction and repulsion, right? So I don't think we ever get like this specific phrase, gravity waves. Gravity waves are waves in a fluid where the restoring force is gravity. Oh, okay, gotcha. So then no, this wouldn't be a gravity wave. It would just be like gravitational force, but not in the form of a wave. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. I want to research that more later because I felt that something was off about it, but I didn't really have the debunk. You would get points off in your UG Astro class for calling gravitational waves gravity waves. Oh, interesting. Okay. The AL, like the gravitational, they are like waves that have gravity as a property to them, but they are not waves of gravity. Or they're waves that are like caused by gravity, but they are not waves of gravity. Is it like my understanding kind of on point there? Hopefully. Okay, so yeah, no, I really appreciate your insight as always, Haria. So I want people to be aware that like Naruto for the first few chapters of this fight does really well. He does defeat multiple paths of Pain. Pain says he's never been pushed this hard before. So what Naruto is doing is an accomplishment. It's impressive. It's great. But let's keep in mind what actually happens, right? So Naruto shows up. The village has been leveled. Pain himself has used an ability that is so taxing that Conan says it shortens your lifespan. Pain is now unable for several minutes, or potentially, it's kind of hard to know exactly how long, but for a while, he's not able to use his most powerful, iconic bread and butter combat jutsu. So he lands, Naruto looks around. Let's keep in mind that Naruto shows up and he's already in Sage mode. So he already has all of the benefits of Sage mode, such as enhanced perception, enhanced reaction, Kawazu Kumite, like the frog kata, stuff like that, right? Enhanced durability, that's already active on him. When he shows up, he has an opportunity to, like, first of all, he's specifically been training to fight Pain, like specifically him. And he's been operating off of intel that has been gathered by Jiraiya and other people in the village. So he does have some knowledge going into the fight. I'm sure Pain has some intel on him as well, but it is worth noting that Naruto has specific knowledge and ideas that he's been thinking about to fight Pain beforehand. So he has had prep time, right? And he has had like specific, whatchamacallit, a specific, at least opportunity to try to devise a strategy to counter Pain specifically. So now, worth noting that Tendo is kind of on his own at this point, and the rest of the paths are off to the side. The Asura path has been destroyed once. It gets put into the Naraka path and restored. Now, I don't necessarily think this costs him a lot of chakra, especially since he's already had the Naraka path around with him over the course, the Naraka path has summoned the King of Hell already in this fight. Like, I don't know, maybe this is just something the King of Hell can basically do for free. But it's worth noting that he did already experience damage to the Asura path before this fight. Okay, that seems to be nullified. That seems to be restored by the Naraka path. So let's just say he starts off fresh. But Konan also says when he focuses on Tendo, his jutsu output is tremendous, but it's risky. The other 5 are recovering more slowly than the last time. So interesting. There apparently was a time where his other paths were damaged and they had to go through the process of recovery, maybe after the Jiraiya fight when they got stabbed in the chest. And because Pain's just used this massive jutsu, then they are recovering even more slowly than would be expected. So I think this is open to interpretation, this is open for debate, but what Konan might be saying here is that Pain's jutsu like effectiveness overall, like he's kind of debuffed himself for a while overall. Like if you there's a lot of mechanics in a game where you can like overdrive yourself for a little while, like go into afterburner mode and you'll go much faster, hit much harder for like 10 seconds, but then for like 10 seconds after that, not only will you not be able to use another like overdrive burst, but you know, if it's like a racing game, maybe your car will like overheat and take some damage, or you'll go slower for 10 seconds or something. There's like a kickback, right? So I think she's saying that Pain overall is now at a disadvantage in terms of some of like he might have other knock-on effects of some of his other abilities. Again, not really a point I would like draw a line in the sand on about in it for a debate, but for the course of like just understanding the context of this fight, like Pain is not like hale and hearty going into this, right? So now all the paths show up. Tsunade is kind of talking to Pain, and Pain sends one path kind of recklessly out at Tsunade. Now, Pain is in full view of Tsunade. He's not that far away from her, right? What is this, like maybe 50 feet or something? I don't know. It's not that far away. So since he can see what's happening right in front of him, when Sage Naruto comes down and smacks this path, you can argue that this is a speed anti-feat for the Asura path and for Pain overall, because he should have been able to see Naruto coming in, especially since he can perceive and react to Sage Naruto later on in the fight. It's kind of weird that he does this. But also, keep in mind that the way that Pain starts this fight is by basically just sending this path that he just had destroyed ahead of him, away from the rest of the pack, after Tsunade and not after Naruto, right? He kind of just throws it out there and lets it go, and then watches what happens and then decides what to do next, which is kind of interesting to me. So he loses the first path attacking somebody else before the fight really even gets started. The Asura path gets like hit in the back while it's pursuing Tsunade. So if Tsunade wasn't there and Pain just sent the Asura path directly at Sage Naruto, it's entirely possible that Sage Naruto would have just done the same thing, right? That he could have perceived the Asura path's attack and he might have been fast enough to destroy it. But it is worth noting that before the actual real full-on fight starts, that Pain like starts off having lost one path to this like careless gesture directed towards another character. And if it were a one-on-one situation, if he were bloodlusted, if he started off like at full power, he might not have done this, right? If he's fighting somebody else, he's bloodlusted, where he's maybe being more prudent, he maybe keeps the Asura path back and starts with a barrage of missiles instead of dashing in directly. Like maybe the missiles that he used during the Konoha assault would be available to him here, right? So there's a big question mark for me on why he's doing this and how it relates to other potential matchups. Also, the slander here of like you just sit back and the shade rather sit back and sip some tea is kind of cold when you think about it. Okay, so now Pain himself admits that he doesn't anticipate that. Well, he anticipates that Tendo's power is not going to be recharged for a while, so he specifically gets into this defensive stance. He puts his three, like I guess, most effective combat paths on the front line, other than himself, since he's on cooldown, and he puts his like support path, the one that's mostly relegated to just like healing the other paths, in the rear. So he's the rear guard, he's in the center, he's being protected, and then he puts the others in front. That makes sense. So Naruto has Gamakichi, doesn't really do a whole lot to help him out, but Gamakichi does transport Manpa to him, gets Tsunade out of the way, and he gets access to Katsuyu, and then Manpa like sit on him, and this is where the fight really starts. So now we can start talking about the actual choreography of this fight, right? The Rhino dashes directly at Naruto. Naruto perceives this, obviously, and he stops the Rhino all on his own. That's his own feat. Notice that the behavior of Pain here is kind of similar to what he did with the Asura Path. He himself is hanging back and basically just like besieging Naruto in a way. Well, that's not the right term for it, right? But he's like firing off his own weird version of artillery at Naruto. He's poking at him from a distance and getting his measure while keeping himself back. So he sends a Rhino forward. He's playing defensively. Naruto manages to stop the Rhino and to throw it into the air. Now at this point, you know, the Rhino isn't actually his own feat. Exactly. Rhino isn't immediately desummoned, right? Like the Rhino doesn't appear to be injured necessarily. We don't see his bones breaking. We don't see him bleeding. It's gonna hurt when he lands, quite possibly. Although it is kind of funny to see that he has like these little wings. So it's kind of funny thinking about him like trying to fly back down to the earth like Dumbo or something. I don't think that's gonna happen. But anyway, throws the Rhino up into the air, flies into the air, but he's not dead, right? So Pain then sends two other summons forward. He sends the bull, and he also sends the dog. Now, you might remember from the fight against Edo Nagato, and this is actually kind of crazy when you think about it, that Edo Nagato specifically tells Naruto, you can't like fuck with that dog. KCM Naruto uses a giant ass Rasen Shuriken on the dog, and the dog just takes it. And Nagato says, he multiplies every time you hit him, you've got to knock me out first. Now, I'm entering the glaze zone here. We are now entering the glaze arena, okay? So I'm going to be honest about that. But technically speaking, you can argue that what Pain is saying here is, hey, Naruto, it's easier and more feasible, like more reasonable for you to defeat me myself than the dog. Because if you keep throwing these attacks at the dog, it's not going to do anything. You're going to have to deal with me anyway. So, like, you're just not going to be able to deal with this threat. You have to take me out instead, which is kind of crazy when you break that down. Anyway, dog is obviously a major threat. I don't literally think that the dog is like a better fighter than Pain overall, just to be clear, but he's a massive threat, right? So the dog and the Rhino are coming directly at Naruto. Naruto waits. He stays back, looks at Manpa, and waits for them to do their attack. They use Frog Song to stun both of these animals. So now Naruto's going for these animal paths. He's gotten an assist from Manpa. He's starting off with help from them. He goes in, he uses Shadow Clones, and he uses these Senjutsu enhanced Rasengan to make these like massive Sage Art Odama Rasengans, right? And blasts them both back. But notice that they don't actually desummon yet. So they're hurt, but we know that the dog is not going to desummon anyway, just from getting hit by this. It's possible that the bull's taken out of the fight, but he doesn't immediately desummon. They desummon when, right after this, the three giant warrior toads jump up and slash at them. So I'm going to skip ahead and then go back for a second, right? So Gamabunta stabs the dog. Gamaken hits him with his, I forget what this is called, the man catcher or whatever it is, and then Gamahiro slashes the bull. And it's only after these slashes and only after the strike that these two summons wind up getting defeated. And Gamabunta actually sits on the dog and keeps him pinned down to the ground, right? So think about what might have happened if Ma and Pa weren't there, right? The dog rushes at Naruto. There is nobody to stun them. So the dog and the bull are rushing directly at Naruto. So Naruto uses the Rasengans and pushes them out of the way, but then the dog just multiplies, like we saw happen with the Rasen Shuriken, and then comes right back at him. Right? So he doesn't have, unless he expends more chakra to make sage clones or something to hold him down, unless he spends more chakra on more attacks against the dog, that dog is going to turn right back the fuck around and keep fighting him. So Naruto on his own has this massive fucking problem to deal with that Ma and Pa and the other toads just solve for him. He doesn't have to finish off the other summons. He doesn't have to waste more chakra fighting them because he has the assistance in getting rid of them. 1 second. Keeping in mind also, like, I don't think the centipede is necessarily all that effective, but Pain also lost the centipede in the previous fight, so he can't use that here. How about No says, if we're glazing Nagato, we are. We definitely are. It's worth pointing out that Jiraiya's comment of being a frog in a well, unaware of the ocean comment, is in the context of him having had two-tailed beast bombs in his face. I actually don't remember that. Can you please remind me of where that that comes from? I don't. That's a very good point, but or that's a very compelling quote, but I don't remember where it comes from. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, in the Minato one shot. Oh, okay, gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and reread that. That's cool though. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, so at that point, like Naruto does take out the Predapath himself, and it does seem like he manages to knock the Predapath out with one Kawazukumite, with one frog kind of punch, specifically with the shockwave or with the like extendo range effect of the punch. Right. I think it's worth noting that that Naruto himself is capable of perceiving the incoming jab from the chakra rod spike and getting just enough out of the way of it, like slipping just enough out of range of it to be able to dodge it while still landing the hit with the Kawazukumite and knocking the Predapath out. So this would be just a straight up, one-shot feat for Naruto, right? Basically, but there's a wrinkle that's worth noting, which is that while he's running directly towards the Predapath, remember, the Deva path is still on cooldown. The Asura path got thrown away carelessly, and Tendo is like the Deva path is holding back and not really participating in the fight at this point. He's just sending the Predapath out on its own, essentially buying time. And what Naruto does here is he's informed by Katsuyu not to use ninjutsu, right? So he doesn't even try to like fire another Rasengan up, to use an Odama Senjutsu Rasengan. He certainly doesn't try to do his Rasen Shuriken. If he didn't have this intel, he might have wasted one of those. If he didn't have this intel, he might have tried one of his ninjutsu instead of this. He specifically gets intel from Katsuyu on what to do. And Katsuyu doesn't specifically say this, but we know from the previous interactions that the Predapath has and comments from people like Kakashi and Choza that he is weak to physical attacks. Like, he's not really a physical fighter. So, Naruto gets the win here, but he gets it while he's being backed up and while he's gotten essentially a, MOBA Fire strategy, like Team Liquid strategy guide on how to deal with this. It's still a feat, but it's also like a feat that is, it's worth noting that it's a feat that comes with a heavy amount of assistance. Let's see. How about No? Oh, the Minato one shot. How about No says, if you mean the quote, it's when he's sinking in the water after getting beaten by Pain, 383. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's helpful too. I appreciate that. Hey, Worm, how's it going? It's good to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by. Worm says, hi, John. It's been a while since I made it to a stream, but I love the Pain discourse. Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. Like, I'm a big Pain fan. I enjoy talking about this stuff. I hope you've had a great break. Hope you had a great holiday. Yeah, last time we talked a little bit more in detail and depth about debate tactics and rhetoric and stuff like that. Today we're going back to what I had been building up to for weeks before we went on the multiversal Naruto or universal Naruto trend again. But basically, I just wanted to go over the Pain versus Naruto fight one more time and specifically mention the context, you know, of the advantages that Naruto has in this matchup. So Naruto then goes ahead and makes these clones right in front of Pain. That's fine. Pain doesn't really do anything, right? He doesn't do a bunch of tending. He doesn't try to flank. He doesn't really use aggressive tactics. He's still waiting for his abilities to come back off of cooldown. And I think he's actually kind of stalling for time here because he's like engaging with Naruto in conversation, like consuming seconds, waiting for his whatchamacallit, for his abilities to come back up. So the longer he continues talking as opposed to being assertive and like getting up in there and like flanking Naruto and attacking him, the better off he's doing, right? So it could be that he's stalling for time a little bit here. They see the Rasen Shuriken coming in, and Pain judges that it's about to hit the animal path. He gets himself and the Naraka path out of the way, and he thinks that he's able to get the animal path out of the way. And he does correctly judge the incoming speed of the attack. He correctly predicts and is able to get the animal path out of the way of the like primary attack itself. However, he's not aware that the Rasen Shuriken can do this expanding thing. Nobody's ever seen this before. The only one that is aware that this can happen is fucking is Naruto himself. Fukusaku's even like surprised by it. Naruto invented this jutsu. Fukusaku doesn't even know, and he and Ma don't even know that it can be thrown, let alone expanded. So yes, this is a win for Pain as for Naruto. He gets this kill. He earns this. But also keep in mind that like Pain is being defensive and stalling for time when this happens, and he has no idea that this brand new, never before seen, unique jutsu has these properties. Despite that fact, he's able to react to it, like keep his cool, react to it, and throw the bird summon out there. Now Naruto does react to the bird summon, so that's his reaction feat. Like he's obviously surprised by it, or like he has like a kind of I don't know if he's surprised exactly, but he does have this kind of like reaction call out, and he responds to it. Gamaken previously responded to it by raising up his shield, right? So he's relative to Gamaken, however impressive that might be. But then, yeah, it explodes behind him. He's fine. There's this conversation that happens, and then I'll check chat, and then we can kind of go from there. Cringeworm says, or Worm says, thank you, the holidays were great. Oh, that's great. I'm really glad to hear that. I know, for myself included, sometimes the holidays can be really stressful, so I'm glad things worked out for you. I hope you had a great, like, restful, fun times. Yeah, it's wonderful if that's the case. Debate tactics sounds fun. I might check that out. Yeah, please feel free. The video on demand from last week is up on the live channel. Basically, I wanted to take the time to go through a debate and, like, I did something maybe a little bit weird where like every time I heard a positive claim, I wrote it down and then thought about whether or not I thought it checked out and like why it did or didn't. And so like I made a list, I think it's like 450 individual claims that Noodles and Apollo made in their debate. And over the course of 4 hours, we went through half of them last time. And I think I tallied up like over 300 individual mistakes, meaning like either falsehoods or inaccuracies or just like, things submitted with no evidence or whatever that Noodles made over the course of that debate. So it's like really actually, I just wanted, like, I've been like whining about debates for over a year now. And I wanted to actually for once put some numbers to it, right? So it was a fun exercise, but it was definitely much more pedantic and nitpicky than something like this, right? Well, yeah, let me know what you think if you wind up getting around to it. No pressure, of course. Worm says the animal path getting thrown around because of its lacking physicals all the time is very interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. The Asura path, right, like picks her up and throws her in the beginning of the fight, which is why I think it's really interesting to talk about like the idea that the Rasen Shuriken is slower than Naruto when he's throwing it, when like Naruto himself also picks himself up Like he has his clones like pick him up and throw him. So I mean, like throwing in general, especially from a like a bigger, stronger person, seems to be a good way of giving yourself a speed boost in this verse, right? It's an interesting topic for sure. But yeah, I think that can also be used as evidence to demonstrate that the paths themselves, they're not all like shadow clones of Pain, right? They're not all copies of him with equal stats. They are human beings with their own physical strengths and weaknesses and proclivities and whatnot that have been reanimated via Pain's chakra. So he could be amping them, he could be making them stronger, like physically, stats wise, whatever, compared to how they were when they were alive, but it could be a little bit closer to Edo Tensei than Shadow Clones because, you know, their bodies are going to have their own like physical energy that's going to be related to their like body, like their muscle structure, their bone density, whatever. Like those physical properties are still going to be part of them because they are like human beings after all that have been reanimated. So that's worth noting. So going forward in the fight, you know, lest we forget, the dog hasn't exactly been taken care of. Oh, sorry, it says still listening, but you're going to take a quick shower. Oh, yeah, no worries. I hope you enjoy. We're going to be taking our time, so I'm sure you won't miss much. But yeah, have a good one. Worm says, yeah, definitely each paths have unique strengths in that sense, along with the abilities attributed to them as well. Yeah, for sure. Like they have, I don't know if they necessarily retain like any of their like reflexes or instincts from, or fighting styles from how they used to fight when they were alive, but their like raw physical stats, for lack of a better word, I think are influenced by their anatomy, and their anatomy is different. One second, I'm just gonna blow my nose with the mic off. Okay, sorry about that. Alrighty, so something important to keep in mind about this part of the fight is that the animal path, or the dog, the Cerberus, whatever you want to call it, is of course not defeated yet. There's nothing here that Naruto can really do to kill it. If a massive Rasen Shuriken from KCM1, Naruto also couldn't do it, and Nagato specifically said that. So this dog, if Gamabunta, Gamahiro, Gamaken weren't here, would be split up and now coming for Naruto himself. Naruto doesn't have to deal with that because these other characters are here helping him with it. And note that that one dog can fight these three toads at the same time and create problems for three of them at the same time, right? So this one dog is relative to these three toads. I wouldn't necessarily like push this point too hard, but it's worth noting that Gamabunta shows relativity to Shukaku, and that I think in the third data book it says that Gamaken is relative to Gamabunta, at least in some capacity. Like the strength of his weapons is equivalent to Gamabunta's. It's a little weird, but you know, you can make a loose argument that he's relative in combat strength to Gamabunta, at least in terms of his taijutsu. Maybe he doesn't have like the water gun or whatever, like the water bullets. But that being said, like this dog is capable of going up against three giant frogs, two of which are demonstrably at least partially relative to a Biju. Not all the Biju, but a Biju, right? So these aren't just like some big chunky fodder, like it's not the equivalent of Naruto summoning like in some Rashomon gates to just like block some attacks for him, right? Like a big ass Snorlax to just like, you know, sit and take some hits or whatever. These are fully capable, like combat capable warriors, and this one just one summon, is managing to pressure all three of them, right? Worm also says, John, I'm curious if you have thoughts on this. One thing I remember Hobbes saying about Pain is that the feats displayed by the past line up with the levels of reincarnation in Buddhism: godly realm, asura realm, human realm, animal realm, predator realm, hell realm, in that order. That makes perfect sense. I don't know that much about the actual underlying history and like the religious inspiration, but that is correct. Like the six paths are the paths are in reference to I forget if it's paths of enlightenment or whatnot, but it is like a Buddhist thing, for sure. Hobbes is on point about that. the series overall takes a lot of inspiration from Japanese myth, like from Shinto, but also from Buddhism, and this is absolutely no exception. I think even like the name of the animal path. So it's like all of the paths have sort of like two names, right? There's the animal path, which is also called Chikushodo. There's the Naraka path, which is also called Jigokuto, and Jigoku is, I think, the Japanese word for hell, if I remember correctly. The Preta path is called Gakido. The human path is Ningendo, which literally just means like the human path. Ningen is human. And then the Deva path. Deva is something that like Deva and Asura are um, I don't know if they're deities exactly, but they're something akin to deities or like powerful entities in Hindu, I think. But it's nah, fuck it. I should just like look this up. Okay, Deva. Okay, Deva in Sanskrit refers to divine or celestial beings in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, meaning heavenly or godlike. Right? Yeah. So they are shared. Maybe not this, but they are shared like mythological figures that are shared between different mythologies. So that is really cool. I love the way that Kishimoto incorporates stuff like that in his work. Also, the video game Sekiro is very similar to Naruto in that it also incorporates similar elements. So if you'll encounter like a white snake, for example, that is associated with like resurrection, reincarnation. It's like, oh, okay, so this is like a common trope, or like you'll see that you'll see like those big thick ropes that like the Shimenawa and stuff like that that show up as iconography in Naruto and Sekiro just come from like Shinto shrines, if I remember correctly. Um, Obviously, like the design of temples is directly inspired from real world stuff as well. Sorry for the coughing. Um, Worm says, particularly the godly realm is stronger than the Asura. Yeah, that's probably correct. The There's also the final path, the Gedo, right? Gedo means like I forget what the Ge stands for, but the Do is referring to a path. So like the seventh path is like the Gedo Mazo is the statue of the outer path. I think it is right. It's the final path. Um, so Nagato himself, I think, refers to himself as the final pain, or like the seventh path, or something like that. And that comes with with the control over life and death, like the ability to bring souls back from the dead and stuff like that. So, Jigoku is hell. Jigoku Raku, Hell's Paradise. Oh yeah, that's cool. I heard good things about that. Or also says, I forgot Sekiro has those elements. It's a fun memory. I remember the white snake and that stuff. Yeah, I adore that game. There's a lot of stuff in there too about like that is it's a very useful and fun source for learning more about like Shinto especially, but also Buddhism, right? There's one of the levels that you go to is like Senpo Temple on Mount Kongo, and I went to Japan a few years ago, and I actually went to Mount Kongo. It's believe it or not, it's not like swarming with like centipede infested Buddhists, believe it or not. But it is a real mountain um, with a temple and like burial grounds and stuff. And I don't know if cemetery is the right term for it, but something like that. And little like Inari shrines and stuff like that. It's very lovely, actually. And certainly, like they captured the feeling of the countryside and the mountainside, and like how the trees and everything, like how it just sort of feels to be there, was extremely well like brought to life. And then I think the shugendo, which, if I'm pronouncing that right, is the like an ascetic practice of doing like intense climbing, and like difficult like climbing and pathing up mountains and stuff as a form of meditation. And obviously, what I did, just kind of climbing up like the paths, was not the same, but it was exhausting, man. Like I can imagine, like the that part of the level too in Sekiro, like you're going through all these like mountain precipices and like on these like rickety scaffolds over chasms and stuff like that. And it's like, oh yeah, okay. You could see the people who dedicated their lives to this, lived under these conditions. You can see where the inspiration comes from. And Juzo, I think it's Juzo, right? The statue of the bodhisattva that looks over like little children in the afterlife and stuff like that, you can very clearly see lots of imagery from Juzo around. Um, is it Juzo or Jizo? I always get confused. Is it bundled Jizo statue? Yeah, Jizo. So it's Jizo, right? Like these little things, right? You'll see like red bibs, and you'll see like these things and pinwheels and stuff. Like these are very popular, very common symbols in graveyards and burial sites and stuff like that. You will see this character, this figure, and he is very prominently featured in throughout Sekiro as well. Very interesting to learn about like his story and his significance. So it's, I think, like, obviously I'm coming at this from a Western perspective. I lack the local cultural understanding, but I will say that I think that popular media like this is a great way of people just finding more out about things like this, like the culture, the history, the mythology, that they might not otherwise have done so. I'm hoping the same, like for Saria's sake, I'm hoping that the same thing winds up being true of like Claire Obscure, spreading more interest in French mythology, like local folk tales and stuff like that. So, excuse me. So, that being said, Nagato also has the ability to tell when Naruto is running out of chakra in Sage Mode, and he's able to kind of plan his counterattacks accordingly. That being said, the last path that he manages to get before he runs out of Sage Mode, he does so with further assistance. Before Naruto, we get this internal monologue about him about running out of Sage Mode. Ma and Pa specifically identify that they need to break the Rinnegan link. So he's going to need their help to isolate and remove one of the remaining paths before he runs out of time. So Fukasaku coordinates with Gamabunta, right? And this is something that I kind of missed out on a few times as well, especially in black and white. It's not super clear what's going on here. But what happens is that Fukasaku tells Gamabunta, hey, we're going to combo attack. Then Ma specifically uses this dust attack that they're well aware of from the Jiraiya fight, that Pain has trouble seeing through, like dust and smoke and stuff like that. So Ma creates a visual obstruction. Fukasaku throws Gamabunta at Naruto. Gamabunta swallows up the animal path while the animal path is like, while Pain's vision is obstructed. And then inside his mouth, Gamabunta, so while Naruto and the animal path are inside Gamabunta's mouth in the dark, cut off from their field of vision, Gamabunta keeps attacking and applying pressure to the other paths, which are down to 2 outside at that point. Keeping in mind that Pain still doesn't have his signature abilities up, right? Like if he had Shinra Tensei, he could have hypothetically just like blasted this dust back and not been bothered by it. So Naruto does manage to use his Rasengan Barrage on the which is Senjutsu enhanced, by the way, on this path, but it's specifically with the help of 3 other, like, quote unquote people inside a darkened area removed from the shared field of vision while Tendo is on cooldown. So at this point, you know, it's only because he managed to do this, and specifically that he got the animal path, that then he winds up giving a reprieve to the other 2 frogs, who are genuinely like starting to get tired. Like we see them going huff and puff and all that, and it looks like they've got some scuffing on them. So there are more dogs. Like the dogs have been continuing to multiply. These guys are starting to get a little shaky. Naruto himself is like sweating and huffing and puffing, and has now run out of Sage Mode for the first time. So yes, Naruto has defeated 4 of the paths of Pain at this point. However, he got 1 freebie, right, when the Asura path dashed forward, and for all the other 3, he has gotten a lot of help. You know, we don't exactly see it all in one place, so it's easy to forget here, but he had help from Ma and Pa and Fukasaku, and Gamabunta and Gamahiro and Gamaken to take out the animal path. They were all participating in him taking out the animal path here. So think about how that would have gone if Pain was bloodlusted and he had his full strength and he was just focusing on Naruto and he wasn't playing defensively and sending the paths out one at a time. Would Naruto have done as well as he did here. In other words, is it fair to say that Naruto himself as an individual, like singular, was kicking Pain's ass or blitzing him and one-shotting him or whatever people say? I don't think so. There's a lot of other details that are going on here. Now, does Naruto have the AP and the speed and the overall combat skill to take out one, maybe multiple paths of Pain himself? Sure. I don't have a problem with that, especially if he manages to isolate them somehow. Obviously, it's his AP of the Rasen Shuriken that cuts the Ningendo in half, right? It's the AP of his strike that gets rid of the Predapath. It's the AP of his Senjutsu Rasen, or Sengan and Rasen Barrage that destroy the other two paths. So he's capable of doing it. He can hurt the motherfucker, but that doesn't mean that he's like winning in a one-on-one fight against him, right? So just worth keeping that in mind. Worm says, I love that Fukasaku is the one who hurls Bunta Boy. Yeah, that just goes to show you how strong Sage Mode really is, giving him the ability to just chuck him around the battlefield. Okay. Sorry, just taking a drink. So, now for the first time, we see Tendo dashing forward. So, Tendo wants to get to Naruto because he thinks that Naruto is vulnerable now. Because he's run out of Sage Mode. So, granted, Tendo still doesn't have his abilities back yet. So he's still at a disadvantage, but he thinks that now he can, I guess, outmaneuver the frogs and get to Naruto's position fast enough to incapacitate him, right? Now, Ma and Pa and Gamabunta, or at least Pa and Gamabunta, are still technically helping Naruto here. And by what I mean by that is that Pain starts off by fighting Gamabunta. He doesn't really do much. He immediately gets away from him, but he does go after Gamabunta first, so he's participating. Naruto then throws the scroll over to Pa. Pa catches it and specifically helps Naruto by summoning in his Sage Clone. I'm not sure if Naruto would have been able to summon in that Sage Clone in the same way without Pa, right? Like, Gamabunta also offers to come in. He doesn't really do much to help, but it is Pa that winds up summoning in the Sage Clone. Before he gets the Sage Clone, Naruto is reacting to what Pain is doing, but he's playing defensively. He's keeping up with him. But keep in mind, again, like, Pain is not at full power. Pain is only attacking with one path. He hasn't even taken out chakra rods and tried to stab him just yet. He only starts to do that right here. And unfortunately, for him, he does it right as Naruto goes into Sage Mode. Pain doesn't know that he can do that, and Fukasaku specifically helps him do that. Like, they're shouting at each other and coordinating with each other. And so, yes, he does manage to break the chakra rod and land a hit on Pain. But while doing so, he pulls it off with assistance. So it's a feat, but it's a feat with assistance. Then he throws the Rasen Shuriken, and even though the Predapath is nowhere to be seen at the time of the Rasen Shuriken being prepared and thrown, so he's nowhere, within Naruto's field of vision, at least that we can see, the Predapath still manages to jump in front of him after he throws it and absorb it. So my opinion of what's happening here is that while Pain sent the Devapath out to serve as a like vanguard, so to speak, he used that as cover to have the Naraka path start resurrecting some of the other paths, and he does manage to resurrect the Predapath. Okay, so that's great. So now he's gotten one of his paths back. Now Naruto starts formulating a strategy. Notice again that Pain is just kind of hanging back, not going on the assertive, and biding time till he gets his jutsu back up. Now, this is one of Naruto's most impressive feats in the fight, and this is actually, I think, some plot-induced stupidity for Pain, right? Because, like, he knows that the smoke is a disadvantage. Why is he just fucking standing there? Like, why doesn't he dash back? I don't think he's being super smart here, right? This is actually super clever what Naruto does, and I want to call attention to it because it's an intelligence feat for him. So he doesn't just keep attacking willy-nilly. He doesn't just keep spamming Rasen Shuriken or whatever. He's very smart about this. He understands very well at this point that Pain has a disadvantage of struggling to see through the smoke and the fog. Now, granted, I think that's stupid. I think if, we get all this hype about the about how the Rinnegan is supposed to be like the ultimate dojutsu, it's supposed to be the greatest evolution of ocular abilities or whatnot. And that being said, like the Sharingan and the Byakugan apparently can like see at a great distance and can see through solid objects. At least the Byakugan can and can like discern illusion from reality and stuff. But poor Nagato can't even see through smoke. Like somebody throws some fucking sand up in the air. Sorry, I'm just blowing my nose. I apologize. Just like throw some sand up in the air and he can't fucking see anymore. So Naruto becomes aware of this. He makes basic Rasengans and then or Senjutsu Rasengans, I guess. And then he mixes them with smoke bombs to create this giant fucking cloud of smoke. Now he can still navigate around the smoke just fine, but apparently Pain is fucking flabbergasted by it. So Naruto's really clever here. He also knows that the Predapath can absorb his Rasen Shuriken because he just sees that happen. So he internalizes that information. He transforms himself into a Rasen Shuriken, right? He takes one of his Sage clones and makes the or no, I think it's actually himself, right? Like he turns himself into a quote unquote Rasen Shuriken, and presumably he has one of his paths throw him at Pain, or I guess maybe he leaps forward, but I don't know, with this like straight flat trajectory. I don't know if that really works. Anyway, one way or another, he winds up coming out of the smoke, and Pain doesn't realize that it's actually physically him. So he transforms, he grapples the Predapath and smacks him down onto the ground. And at this point, right, like he then follows that up by sending in an actual real Rasen Shuriken, which, based on the delay and diversion that he's created for himself, should be able to catch Pain. Pain, of course, is able to deflect it, but specifically he deflects it with the Shinra Tensei. Now, it's worth noting here that I think some people think that the Shinra Tensei, like I think Swag Kage kind of described the Shinra Tensei as being like an omnidirectional, like expands in all like 360 degrees sort of thing. That's not necessarily the case, because as we can see, like the Naraka path doesn't seem bothered by the Shinra Tensei at all, right? And even Naruto down on the ground doesn't seem to be like to have a problem absorbing it or dealing with it or whatever. I think he can actually focus it and target it very specifically. So he basically fires this like mini blast wave forward that just specifically counters the Rasen Shuriken. Anyway, feat for Naruto. He seems to be successful in smacking the Predapath down and taking that out of the fight. That's fine. That's great for him. And also, more to the point, as an intelligence feat, as a tactics feat, while all that was going on, he still also had this backup plan where he came in with his other clone from above using another Rasen Barrage to take out the quote-unquote key player, as Katsuyu put it. So he responds to Katsuyu's tactics. He understands the tactical value of like the healer class, right, that can keep on resurrecting and supporting from the sidelines. He manages to take out the like both of Pain's support and isolate the last path. He uses, he basically baits the Predapath, Pain via the Predapath, into putting himself forward to try to catch this ninjutsu, and knowing that the Predapath is going to go for ninjutsu, thinking it has a disadvantage, he subverts that disadvantage by using a physical assault via the deception of the transformation technique to then take out this path. He does that while using deception and like subterfuge, or whatever you want to call it, with the visual obstruction from the smoke bombs. He enhances the effectiveness of the smoke bombs by using multiple bombs and enhancing the explosion by stirring up dust from the ground with his Rasengan. And then he also throws in this like quote unquote shadowed actual Rasen Shuriken once he's dealt with the like anti-ninjutsu character, and then just in case anything goes wrong, he basically uses all of that elaborate setup as a feint so that he can get in and attack his real target, the Naraka path. So he achieves his goal in this multi-step plan that he comes up with fucking immediately on his own. And this is where Naruto's like true like ferocity, his like true threat manifests itself. Yes, he's really fucking strong. Yes, he's powerful. Yes, he has like amazing jutsu that nobody else has come up with before and all that stuff, and he's got the Nine Tails, but his real like prowess that really takes him above other fighters, which some people just kind of like hand wave away as unpredictability, is his constant like quick thinking and his rapid evolution of his intelligent like battle tactics, and also being able to take a limited pool of overall jutsu. Like he doesn't have a shitload of jutsu that he can use, but he uses the few jutsu he has in so many different varied and complex ways, and he keeps on evolving it and keeps on like making it better and better. Excuse me. uh, Hey Karia, how's it going? It's good to see you. Hope you are having a great weekend. Karia asks, do you have any toy pistols from your childhood, ones that use tiny metal balls or steel balls? No, I never really had guns when I was a kid of any sort. I had like a Nerf gun that shot little darts, and I used to like fire them around the house. Like I would fire them down a hallway. You know, like the little rubber ones with the soft rubber tip. I would like fire it down the hallway, and then my cat would like jump and run after it, and then she'd like play fetch and bring it back to me. And so I would just like shoot it, never at the cat, just to be clear, I never shoot it at the cat, but I would shoot it like around the house, and then she would go chase it. I've always wanted to try paintball. Like I would do that, but I never really owned like any kind of like toy guns or anything like that. I have gone to a firing range a couple of times with friends. I live in the States and right now, and it's actually surprisingly easy to just go somewhere and be like, yeah, that massive fucking automatic weapon. Can I just like blast that away at something with no training and no supervision whatsoever? It's like, yeah, give me $100. Okay. And so they will hand you one place I went to, they had like a fully automatic Scar H, and they just like gave it to me. Like, do they do I need training? And they're like, do you know how to use a gun? I'm like, I mean, sort of. And then so the guy walked in with me, and he's like, okay, so this is where the ammo goes, this is the safety, you pointed at that thing and you press this button, got any problems, come get me. And he just left me there with a fucking Scar and like multiple like preloaded magazines. And I think I paid like $100 for for all of that. It's actually kind of insane what you can like like yeah, that's a thing. And I didn't need to go like I had to like sign a waiver. That was the intense training that I had to go through to be able to do this. Obviously the facility itself is like monitored and secure. You know, they have security in place so nobody's going to do anything crazy, but it's still like it's a serious deal. It's a weapon. It's a very serious thing when you consider it's not a fucking toy, and you can just like go there. Oh yeah, that's a good point. I used to live further up north, and there was a Walmart that I went to at one point, and it's like 11:30 at night, and I was just bored, and there was nothing to do, so I was like in the middle of nowhere. So I just went into a Walmart, and like there were just shotguns like on racks. Like just I think there was like technically in a glass display case, but I could just reach in and grab one, and there was like ammo on a shelf, and I could reach over and just grab it and put it in my cart. And yeah, the shotgun had like a little plastic tab over the trigger, so you know, in theory, I wouldn't be able to use it, right? But that's not going to stop somebody who's motivated. You just like literally could just walk into the store. No, like there's like two people in the whole giant fucking Walmart. It's the middle of the night, middle of nowhere. Nobody gives a shit, right? Like if you really wanted to, and do not do this. I am not endorsing this. You should not do this. But like if some motherfucker was motivated, they could just take it and go, right? It's like it's crazy just how like cavalier we are about some of this stuff. Anyway, why curious why you're asking about that of all things. Do you mess around with that sort of thing? In the UK, US buying AK-47 or any of the assault rifles can be bought like grocery. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know if like AKs specifically. I haven't actually seen that particular model in at like ranges. There's hunting stores that have like Mosin Nagants and stuff like that. They have like you know, a variety of different imported weaponry, but I think that's far less common. Especially in America, there's a very like buy local mentality with a lot of things, including firearms. So yeah, you're less likely to see that specific model, but yeah, like AR-15s, you can just like basically get them at a grocery store, like you said. One second. So for a bazooka, I've never actually seen one in person, and any of the ranges that I've been, they haven't had any explosives. There are ranges that you can go to where you can specifically do stuff with explosives, but you need, in from what I've seen, you need specialized training or you need people there with supervision. I mean, it's a lot easier to make a mistake with a hand grenade and have that go terribly, terribly wrong, even if you're, um, sincere and not trying to cause trouble or anything, let alone like a bazooka or an RPG. So I don't know of any place that will let just a civilian with no training just do that. However, I do know that I work in. Oh, welcome back, sorry. It's good to have you back. Hope you had a good shower. Um, I work with folks in the video games industry who have done sound recording for military games, not specifically for Battlefield, but like think of games like that, right? And I've done some gun recording as well. And so for tanks and stuff, and for mortars and like black powder explosives, they will, had some friends who worked on a library where basically they got all kinds of like old cannons because it was like an old like military sim game, and so they got like big cannons with cannonballs and gunpowder. They went someplace, I think in Pennsylvania, where they do like historical fiction battle reenactments, and they basically spent a certain amount of money and they just went out on the field while they were training, like doing their practice reenactments or whatever. They set up their microphones and they recorded that. So for that sort of thing, and then also like the ethics of this is a little questionable, but for big games like Call of Duty and Battlefield and stuff like that, sometimes they will actually have promotions with the military, and so the US military will be willing to like let people tag along to record footage of and record audio from training exercises. If you want to record genuine audio capture and get like a genuine 3D scan of like uh, a grenade launcher or something like that, or like a saw or something, you're probably not going to be able to just go to a place and do that. You're probably going to need a connection, and you're going to need, I mean, like private collectors. That being said, like I don't really know all that much about this, but what I have heard is that like at gun shows and places like that, like private collectors can get their hands on stuff through various means, but like that's not my world. I don't know anything about that. I don't want to know anything about that. If you want to do it through legitimate means, which is what you should do, then yeah, you're going to need to go through some channels and go through some hoops to do that. But I think Dice released a documentary recently where they went out with a Swedish military on like a week-long winter training exercise, and they're like walking alongside their tanks like with the soldiers, just recording the treads and cannon fire and stuff. It's really cool actually. So um Payne's universal repel can stop all the gunshots easily. That's what's brought up the gun stuff. Oh yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, like as long as he can blast the weapons out of people's hands and not get hit during that 5 second cooldown. But I actually do think that like if somebody snuck up, if like he was fighting like two John Wicks at the same time, and John Wick A fired a gun at him from the front, and he used Shinra Tensei to blast that away, that John Wick firing at him from behind might actually hit him, and I think the bullet would hurt him. I think Naruto characters, by and large, can get hurt with like knives and shit, like kunai or shuriken. They're just knives, right? So, I mean, not everybody. Kakuzu can harden his skin, and like the kunai will break on contact, but I think a lot of people, yeah, they're gonna get messed up by gunfire. I mean, there's a reason why guns don't really show up that much, or like at all, uh, apart from stuff like water gun, I guess, not actual firearms. Actually, in some of the movies, there are like and in the novels they actually do have like field artillery that they bring to bear, both in the forms of like in Clash in the Land of Snow, they have this train that has all of these like ballistas or something, like I don't know what to call them, but they're basically like these rapid fire mechanical ballista bolt launchers that fire volleys of like 50 massive arrows at a time. In the I think Kakashi Retsuda novel, they besiege a town with like fucking cannons. So there is actually gunpowder and like semi-modern siege weaponry, present in the extended Naruto universe. But yeah. Sorry says, I stopped the shower and started bathing, and my girlfriend was like, "Are you taking a bath?" Yes, your back hurts. Yes, I fucking told you not to start flipping and shit. I love you too. Yeah, you can't blame her for looking out for you, but I also can't blame you for wanting to like be able to exist normally in your body and do the things that bring you joy. So, I'm sure you two will look out for each other. I think that's sweet. Obito does just tank an executioner's blade slash to the arm. Um, do you remember where that is? I don't. Oh, right, against Actually, no, I don't. I don't think I remember when that happens. Could you please remind me? But that's a good point. Chapter 404. Okay, let me take a look. I'm just joking around with guns. You're not interested in the military part. Yeah, that's fair. Oh, it's sweet. Yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, so it's weird. Like I'm not a violent person, and I don't have an interest in like combat or being in combat, but I do find the like mechanical engineering and the history of firearms to be kind of fascinating. Um, and I think that especially since I played like so many video games and experienced so much media glorifying firearms and also kind of representing them in an incredibly unrealistic way, like toys essentially, or like superpowers. It was a very sobering experience and a very valuable experience to go in a controlled setting and hold a firearm and fire it, and like you immediately gain a lot of respect for what this thing is and what it can do, and it demystifies it in a way that I think is important. They're not like fucking lightsabers, you know. They are they're weapons, they're tools, and that gets forgotten. I think about by the way that they're gamified so often in the games that I've played and in some of the games that I made too. Like I worked on a military sim at one point, and so I think it's like it's not appropriate for I didn't feel like it was appropriate for me to be building a game around the use of like real world firearms and never to have fired one, right? So doing so, like going to a range and like going through that was definitely uh like a good experience in terms of gaining like that knowledge, and like going away from some of the naivete that I had about it, if that makes any sense. um Kario says, have you started One Piece? I recommended you like last year, October, around there. There's a special power system, Haki. Their armament hardening turns the body hard enough to tank bazooka. Oh, that's really cool, actually. Well, yeah, I mean, like, Pain does tank a fucking, to counter what I said, Pain does tank like an explosion from Six Tails Naruto, and it's called a Biju Bomb. So it's not literally gunpowder, of course, but it is a massive fucking explosion. So I mean, there's some debate to exactly how durability works. That's something I'd like to do a deep dive into at some point. But yeah, I started One Piece. I think I've been enjoying it more than Bleach so far. But I haven't gotten very far. I got to the point where there's a guy who's like chained up, and a little girl tries to give him a rice ball, and then it falls on the ground, but he eats it anyway. And I thought that was kind of charming. But then I got distracted. I got into JJK for a little while, but then after a certain point, I just kind of fell off as well. Got into Chainsaw Man a little bit, but yeah, I haven't been able to like really sink my teeth into anything for a while. Sorry. Um, yeah, so I want to kind of emphasize that at this point in the fight, Pain has been pressured by Naruto to this point. He's lost multiple paths. He's also had Naruto get up like in his face and only wanting to engage him proactively when he feels like Naruto's Sage Mode has been disabled. But now, the moment that he gets Shimura Tensei back, he just blasts Naruto away. And Naruto's clearly, like, if not outright hurt by this, he's definitely taken aback by it. It immediately gets rid of one of the Sage clones, right? There's the poof where it goes away. He's fine. He doesn't seem to be hurt by it, right? But now remember, Gamabunto was able to contribute so much to the fight previously that he held back the dog for a while. He also at least served as a target, as a distraction for Tendo Pain briefly. He was able to hold one of the paths in his mouth and all that. And now all three of the frogs are attacking Pain. And Pain, while Naruto is kind of hanging back, with one single almighty push, he takes care of three frogs at the same time, right? One push, three frogs. And look at how far he throws Gamma Hero over here. Like, out of the, well, both of them. Like, he throws them so far that they leave the ring of debris created by the massive Shinra Tensei, and they fly outside of the fucking arena of the village, like into the surrounding countryside. Well, like he does. This one hits the wall, and then this one goes into like a pool somewhere else, right? So they fly at a great distance. I think Gamabunta specifically says something like, "I feel like all the bones in my body have been broken." I don't remember exactly where that is, but let's keep an eye out for that, right? Because it's obviously like a huge deal. I don't remember. I think Gamahiro is implied to be killed, but then he shows up in the anime later. But I think this is the last time we see him in the manga. Cringeworm says, or Worm, should I just say Worm? Says, have you read Kagurabachi? I think you might have mentioned that before, but I haven't actually read it yet. You just read it and you think it's actually really good. Like JJK, if it had a good story and not just hype and aura. Yeah, that's kind of what led to me falling off. Like, I was pulled in by some of the art style, some of the characters. I really liked Gojo, like his design, and like there were some fights and some moments that were genuinely chilling and extremely well drawn. But after a while, it just kind of faded in terms of interest. And so, if it has a similar vibe, but it has a stronger sense of, you know, story narrative characters, I definitely appreciate that. Looking for a couple hundred more. Yeah, that's great. I'd love to get my teeth into something for a good long chunk of time. Get really invested in it. Kind of miss that sometimes. How about No says crazy because in Konoha Hiden, it stated the village is so big, circling it once risks breaking bones down. Okay, yeah. Well, like based on what we see from the like actual pain destruction feat from before, it doesn't look like it's like, I don't know, it might be like a couple miles across. I don't know. It could be smaller than that. So it could also be that the village is depicted in different sizes and like it grows over time. Not sure, but you consider the mass of these fucking frogs. Like it's a lot of mass that's being displaced over a large distance. And it's more damage than Chicago did to him with his fucking like air bullets. So, and he does it to 3 frogs simultaneously. It looks like, did he like blast through the wall? No, he goes over the wall, I think. Anyway, yeah, it is quite impressive one way or another, and it is probably quite a large area, as you mentioned. Worm is good. Okay, yeah, I don't think I mentioned it to you before. Somebody else must have had good taste too. Okay, cool, yeah. That's cool. I'll have to check it out. I think I still owe a few people at least trying House and Fata Morgana first, but I'll add it to the list though. About the Berserk stream, good question, Karia. I'm still totally down to do a Berserk stream. I'll have to go back and I want to like go reread it kind of quietly, like take my time with it, and think of something to say. But if you guys have like suggestions, feel free to send them in the Discord or leave a comment. And if you're like, I'd like you to cover this particular chapter or talk about this character or something, then I can focus on that when I go and start my reread. I just noticed this like medical ninja lurking here like an asshole. Like, look at that, he's so pissed. Anyway, how about No says also probably bigger than the Force of Death depending on how you interpret the chapter 115 cover. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Let me actually go take a look at that. I'm kind of curious what you're referring to specifically. But yeah, the Force of Death is supposed to be 10 kilometers across, right? So as long as the village is bigger than that, then like, oh yeah, you think so? Yeah, I've heard some disagreement about this. That some people think that this specifically is the Forest of Death, but then apparently, like the actual map of the Forest of Death that Anko shows during that arc has like 2 rivers going through it, right? It has like one that goes like here, but then another one that splits inside the middle circle, if I remember correctly. So I know some people have said that they think that this specifically is the forest itself, which would mean that this is 10 kilometers across. The contention that I might have with that though is that like if you look at the size of one of these buildings, right? Like I would have to obviously do the calc, but maybe like let's look at this, right? Like this is the Hokage monument. So if you consider this to be like 50 meters across, then you could say like the distance from here to here is maybe 100 meters across, which would mean that like you could put maybe 10 of those between here and here. So maybe from here to here is like a kilometer. But I mean, if you actually look at the size of those houses and imagine that like, okay, this is like maybe 50 meters, maybe, probably less than that, probably 25 meters is the size of like this little house. I don't know. I'd probably be willing to say that, like, if I had to guess, somewhere between 2 to 3 kilometers at most would be the distance between the center of the village and the wall, and that might be a little generous. I think going above 2 is probably a bit much, but yeah. So pain is probably like destroying all of this stuff in here. But I mean, obviously, like radius and surface area are different things, right? He's destroying the surface area, or rather the volume of no, I guess it would be surface area, right? It's not like, yeah, whatever, however you want to break it down mathematically, he's destroying like basically all of this. And the village might have expanded since this is multiple years prior, in part 1, right? Buildings are way in front. You could use the lines in the mountain to encounter for perspective. Yeah, that'd be a better way to do it. Oh, actually, I wonder if this is the fork. Well, no, I think the fork is like actually inside the okay, yeah. Yeah, I'd have to get into it. Dr. Strangle is better about like calcs and stuff like that, right? But we could also, like, what I would probably do is I would get like multiple different. I would look at the village up close, and I would see, like, can we get close up lengths of these streets, and then kind of extrapolate from there and look at it at different angles and stuff. Yeah. Maybe we could just say like a mile as like a baseline radius for now, something like that. It would be 7 to 10 square kilometers, says Cario, for the total area from the attack. Oh wow, okay. Yeah, that honestly feels like probably pretty reasonable. I tend to be like a little conservative. Like, if I'm in glaze mode, I'd say that sounds fine. If I'm like debating against that topic, I'd probably be like, it's maybe a little much, but I think it's in the right ballpark anyway. I think you're thinking about it from the right angle, so to speak. Okay, so I admittedly, I'm pretty tired. My voice is kind of giving up pretty fast, so I think I'm gonna go for another like 20 minutes or so. Let me see if I can get through to the point where Naruto goes into Six Tails mode real quick. So keeping in mind that like Pain now is kind of, again, kind of taking his time, letting this whole conversation go on while he's just kind of screwing around. Then he immediately, right, like once he starts taking things seriously again, he uses Bancho Tenin to separate Naruto from Manpa, pulls him in, he punches him in the stomach. Now that punch doesn't seem to really do anything other than like temporarily like holding him in place. But then the Predapath grabs him, and over the course of like, yeah, he says like, you think you can hurt me? Like, he doesn't seem phased by the physical punch. But the Predapath does actually successfully restrain him. And then he like sucks the Senjutsu chakra out of him in a matter of moments. Really hard to measure exactly how long this takes, but probably a couple of seconds based on his like reaction and the context from the rest of the scene. And then Pain basically thinks he's done at this point, right? How about No says, worth noting, you can't hurt me is English only, and the JP just says, this doesn't hurt me much. Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, between gasps of pain. Okay, that actually makes a whole lot more sense. Yeah, my interpretation of that is that he does like get winded, but it doesn't like actually wound him or anything like that, right? Oh, cool. That's the actual context there. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. I'm gonna put that in a sticky note. One sec. Cool. Thank you. Excuse me. Have I tried any light novel? What would be an example of a light novel? Would it be like, I think probably the only ones that I've tried are like Doki Doki Literature Club, if that even counts. I guess that's more of a parody. And then I've watched people play like Steins Gate. I really didn't like Steins Gate. I played, I don't know if this counts, but I played 999. And it really wasn't my thing at the time. I'm definitely open to trying more. I just haven't had a great experience with them so far. I have really low tolerance for cat puns, so you know, if a character comes on screen and it's like a teenage girl wearing cat ears and she says something like, "What can I do for you, meowster?" Like, I'm probably gonna just turn it off and not play it again. I'm gonna be honest. But I'm willing to give pretty much anything a try. So Naruto's getting, does manage to get grappled successfully and put in a lock by the Predapath. he does have his chakra drained. Notice that Pain is still holding back here, right? Like Pain is not like buffeting him over and over again with Shinra Tensei. He's not riddling his body with chakra rods. He's not continually punching the shit out of him. He's just standing there arrogantly. I do think one of Pain's greatest like anti feats, whatever, is just how his arrogance like constantly gets in the way of his actual like performance. He's so like conceited and sees himself as being so superior that he lets other people get the advantage. But I mean, like he's just kind of standing there being like, "What the fuck," as opposed to doing anything proactive, while Naruto defeats the Predapath. Like he just lets him get away with that and doesn't actually counter it. Ma and Pa this entire time are generating chakra, getting ready for their clash, for their genjutsu. But of course, Pain with the Bancho Tenin immediately sees this coming, declares that he's had enough of it, and without even really moving, like he's just standing still. He's not really even going on the offensive. Manages to like handle this issue. Okay, so keeping in mind that this could be hyperbole, I don't know if Gamabunta like fucking counted every bone that he has, but he does say all my bones are broken. I'm wondering what the original Japanese is like. I'm sure that's probably a little bit different. These two frogs look like they're knocked out. Gamaken is not, or Gama Hero is not having a good day. Neither is Gamaken, and that was with one Shinra Tensei. Remember, Kario says, you know about the isekai anime like ReZero or Shield Hero and some others like Classroom of Elet. I've heard of ReZero for sure. I've definitely seen like the characters, like people cosplaying them, I think, at cons, and then I've seen like some memes, I think, from them. I don't really know anything about the series though. Does Delicious in Dungeon count? Because I watched that with my partner. We both really love that. Senshi is like my spirit animal. I know that term's probably not. I probably shouldn't use that term anymore. But like, I felt such a connection with him in that show. Excuse me. So fun. Really delightful, charming show. But also like has some really dark elements to it too, which I really enjoyed. So anyway, oh, your roommate's watching ReZero right behind you. That's cool. Yeah, it seems to be one that was pretty well accepted by the fan base, so to speak. That's cool. Are you a fan? But anyway, yeah. So Naruto, right after this, immediately gets pulled in by Bancho Tenin. Granted, he's distracted by Fukasaku's impending demise over here, but it's not like he manages to evade excuse me, the Bancho Tenin. He does successfully get pulled in by it. Pain does grab his throat. He's no longer in Sage mode. That's fine. But he gets skewered and he gets like slammed and harmed by Pain, who's still like not going for the kill. He could have like stabbed him in the neck or something. At this point, if Pain wants him dead, he could just kill him at any point, right? So at this point in the fight, despite the fact that Naruto had access to every bone in my body is broken, also in Japanese. Cool. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. That is very helpful. Thank you. So like despite the fact that Naruto had intel and prep and was specifically working on strategies to fight this specific character, despite the fact that he used like brand new jutsu that nobody ever seen before, with including surprise attacks and combo attacks and like all these tactics, and he had help from these big warrior toads, like forgetting to mention that Ma and Pa and Gama Hero or Gama Ken had already fought Pain before and were familiar with some of the stuff that he could do, including fighting the dog, right? Like, has all those advantages. Pain was at such a massive disadvantage because he just blew up the village. Didn't have his signature abilities, was acting brash and arrogant when he lost the Asura path, going after Tsunade and all that stuff. When he starts taking shit seriously, when he gets his ability back, right, like he immediately is just able to take Naruto out of the fight. He's just like gone, right? 1 second. So granted, if Naruto had Sage mode, this and like had Sage mode longer, or like got dispelled one of his clones or something, then it's possible that Pain could have still been pressured even more. But Pain was under a lot of pressure at a massive disadvantage, and he still won while holding back and not trying to kill Naruto. He won. Like, he beat Naruto. He defeated him Naruto has been defeated now. Now, granted, Naruto still has abilities in reserve, right? So let's talk about that briefly um, before I run out of steam here, right? Granted, Nagato also has spent so much chakra. Like Konan acknowledges that he has exerted himself. He's bleeding, right? He is obviously very tired, so this is taking a lot out of him. It's not like he got this for free. Like one way or another, Naruto made him work for the shit, right? But now Naruto transforms into six tails mode, right? Um, Pain starts to fight him, and I'm gonna glaze over some of this stuff because I just want to cover as much as I can. Pain kind of at this point, remember, like Pain starts fighting him while fatigued and while at a disadvantage with one path left. He manages to almighty push him. Naruto resists the almighty push, seems to kind of like brace himself, absorb the impact and recoil Pain, and pushes him back and slams Pain into a wall, which Pain then where is, so I wanted to know where he actually is at this point. It's a little confusing. So he gets pushed back into the wall. It looks like Naruto then makes a Six Tails Biju Bomb, starts to fire it at him. Tendo actually does like pull in some boulder from somewhere and smashes Naruto in the head. Oh yeah, he's right there. So he's about to get hit at point blank range with the Biju Bomb. He winds up like pulling down the like a rock from another place, like a boulder with a bunch of tanning, smacks him in the head right after getting pushed back, and then the fucking Biju Bomb goes off like a few feet away from him, like maybe 10 feet away from him. So he's at point blank with this thing right in front of him, and it just detonates in his fucking face. And then he just gets up, right? Like he gets up, he's pissed. He's upset about it. His like favorite cloak got like torn up, but he's fine. In the same way that like Naruto also took it at point blank range and he's fine as well. So then he starts running away from Naruto. He's able to outpace Naruto. It doesn't look like he's like, I don't want to speculate about how much he's exerting himself specifically, but he is able to stay ahead of Six Tails Naruto, keep leading him through the forest, waits until he gets within the appropriate range, right? So he's at least as fast as Six Tails Naruto after all that shit. Then he makes the giant catastrophic planetary construction and traps Six Tails Naruto in. Now, obviously, this is very draining. This is very fatiguing for Pain to do. He's struggling, but he pulls it off, right? Naruto fires another Biju Bomb at it. It basically does jack shit. He gets plastered up into it, and Nagato pulls it off. And at this point, he thinks he's won the fight. He's wrong, of course. It's not fully done yet, but it is reasonable to say that if Naruto didn't have access to a higher evolution of the Nine Tails, like if he couldn't draw out more of Kurama's chakra, that he would have been done by this point. So it's like he's been defeated twice. Like he got defeated in Sage mode, and now he got brought from Sage mode down to base and defeated. Then he got defeated when he was in Six Tails mode, and now he's gonna burst out, take more chakra from Kurama, and enter Eight Tails mode. This is where Nagato like winds up getting stalemated, I guess you could say, because he's not able to enlarge or repair the Jubaku Tensei, and it winds up falling apart, and Pain winds up, Naruto winds up breaking free of it. 1 second, I'm gonna reach out in just a second. Okay, sorry about that. I keep muting the mic so I can blow my nose without you guys having to hear it. Let me check chat real quick. Kario says ReZero keeps getting better with every season. The starting episodes were too boring. Still, it got Best Isekai Award. Oh, that's great. Maybe I should check it out. I'm always in the market for new shows. I'm waiting for I'm really looking forward to Cyberpunk Season 2, Cyberpunk Edge Runners. But in the meantime, I don't have any like active anime that I'm watching, so I'll check it out. Sorry. Worm says, I like isekais, but mainly in the form of getting isekai'd into a historical fantasy romance. Oh, that's cool. Usually I'm reading those in webcomic form too, rather than watching. This is a really deep cut, but like when I was a kid, I watched these movies called A King in King Arthur's Court and A King in Aladdin's Palace, I think. There might have been more of the series, I don't know, but I think it was basically that, right? It's like the main character winds up like going back in time to various places and or like various like mythological settings, kind of like Sonic and the Secret Rings or whatever. It just like goes through to various different places and is out of like fish out of water story, right? It's just kind of fun. I have no idea if those movies hold up, but I that's what I thought of. Another one was called like Warriors of Virtue or something. It's like this little kid who falls into like a little whirlpool and he winds up in some alternate universe with like warrior kangaroos or some shit. All these like weird, kooky, fun movies. Adventures in Dinosaur City, I think that was another one. Um, just like, I mean, even like the original like live action Mario Brothers movies, arguably an isekai, right, where they wind up like going into this weird, creepy, fungus infested like alternate world. It's kind of messed up. Shit, I'm gonna go watch that after the stream. Actually, I haven't seen that shit in ages. I want to go watch that now. Um, how about No says, worth noting Six Tails Bichubon doesn't stop the Chubaku Tensei, but Eight Tails Kurama physically does so. Yeah, that's a good point. I think I'm not 100% sure if the Biju Bomb that Naruto fires at the Chubaku Tensei is like exactly the same power level or whatever as the one that he fires at Pain at Point Blank, but it's still a fucking Biju Bomb coming out of Six Tails Naruto, and the Chubaku Tensei is just like, yeah, I don't give a shit, right? So it just chills. So to wrap this up, because I think I'm going to have to leave pretty soon, Naruto, when he comes out of the Chibaku Tensei, notice that he's in Sage mode, right? I have to go look this up to find this, like, evidence for this, but if I remember correctly, going into Sage mode kind of, like, replenishes you a bit. Like, it brings with it an influx of nature energy, and that helps with your recovery and with your stamina. So, at this point, Nagato himself is, like hemorrhaging, like he's oozing blood. He's going oof and huff and hack. He's obviously very tired. He's lost 5 of the paths. He's only down to 1 path. Naruto at this point has just gotten Sage mode back. He doesn't really look like he's tired. He's gotten refreshed. He comes down and he's able to, like, existing in stage mode. Nagato acknowledges his stamina. Excuse me. And then Naruto, from this perspective, after this little verbal exchange with him, manages to clash with Tendo, kick him back. Tendo gets hit up against the wall, cracks the stones behind him. Naruto stabs himself with the chakra rod, which lets him reverse track Nagato. So it's worth noting here as well that, like, some people don't think that the chakra rods would pierce Naruto's skin because of Sage mode, but I mean, like, here we have him piercing his own skin while in Sage mode with the chakra rod, so it is strong enough to do that without, like, shattering, and it still maintains the signal, back to Nagato. Now, Pain is obviously, like, not doing super hot right now. Tendo is, like, pressed down against the ground. He has to push himself back up. But let's see what he's able to accomplish, right? He's still able to perceive the incoming Rasen Shuriken and push it away. Granted, Naruto uses the shadow, like, Shuriken again, except this time, rather than throwing... rather than like throwing his own body, it looks what he does here is like he makes a Rasen Shuriken, and then he makes a shadow clone, like an ethereal clone, not a physical solid clone, just like a clone of the Rasen Shuriken as an illusion. So he baits Tendo into, having to deal with that. If I were being cheeky, I could say that he didn't think he could just blitz him, so he had to use tactics. But I mean, like, he always uses tactics, so it's not out of character for him to do that at all, right? But he does throw the Rasen Shuriken at Tendo. Then he flanks Tendo right after he's used Shinra Tensei. So while he's on cooldown, he flanks him with 2 of his physical, like, clone bodies while the Rasen Shuriken is coming in. Tendo manages to perceive this happening, defeats both of the clones before the Rasen Shuriken even gets to him, and then he manages to jump and physically avoid the Rasen Shuriken as well, right? And all of that happens over the course of 1 second, because he's counting down 4 seconds to the next jutsu launch. Now, Naruto is tired by that, but part of the reason why, you can actually see that Naruto has gone out of Sage mode here. It's subtle, but he's no longer in Sage mode because he created all of these clones, right? So now he's got this huge army of clones that's going up against Pain, and specifically almost gets to him, but is not quite fast enough. Pain manages to push all of these clones back, in his extremely fatigued, tired state and everything, he gets rid of all these clones. Some of them already start poofing, but some of them don't. So, he doesn't manage to defeat them all instantaneously. He doesn't like instant delete them. For folks who think that the Shinra Tensei has automatic jutsu nullification properties, like it just turns off other jutsu, this is not the case, because the the shadow clones is a jutsu, and this jutsu is not immediately deleted, right? So they do survive. They brace themselves, and after bracing themselves, right, like we now see that they're both very tired. Like Nagato is fatigued as well. Pain readies a Rasen base Rasengan, and then this is what we were talking about before, right? Like he uses his two clones to gather energy, and actually physically throws himself at Pain rather than trying to jump at Pain. So it's only like at the very end, like within this 5-second window, if Pain had managed to stall for another 5 seconds, arguably he could have blasted Naruto back, and then Naruto would be out of Sage mode. He'd be out of, maybe he could do a couple more Rasengans, but he's obviously tired. He just used all those shadow clones, so his chakra is comparatively really low. He's already like gotten suppressed Kurama, so he doesn't have that option anymore. So basically, like, Pain only barely loses the fight, right? So again, we're almost done, but just to recapitulate, Nagato fights the village and basically beats up the village himself. He uses this like expensive attack that he doesn't really have to use, that fatigues him and puts him at a massive disadvantage to Naruto, who he doesn't know he's going to be fighting. Naruto shows up with a ton of prep and intel, and Naruto manages to kill several paths, but this happens specifically while Pain is being very cautious, very defensive, holding back, and while Naruto has doesn't have access to his strongest abilities, and Naruto has a shitload of help throughout all that process. The moment that Tendo gets his signature abilities back, the fight immediately shifts. He starts like pushing back against Naruto heavily, and he has Naruto dead to rights within a matter of moments. Naruto gets a quote-unquote power-up after Hinata's death in the Rage Amp by getting access to Six Tails chakra, and Tendo, solo, already fatigued, like goes up against Six Tails Naruto and effectively defeats him with the Chibaku Tensei. Naruto gets like a mental pep talk from Minato, he gets his Sage mode back, he gets Kurama's like rampage under control, and then he comes back in Sage mode, and he keeps fighting Nagato, who is now down to one path, and Nagato only barely loses. Like, he barely loses. He was within 5 seconds of potentially beating Naruto. And people look at this and they're like, okay, he killed Pain, so Pain is dead. Naruto beat Pain. He defeated the 6 paths of Pain, sure. He achieved victory over these paths of Pain after effectively losing twice. But something to keep in mind as well is that the moment that Naruto gets to Pain, Nagato is still here in his little chair, in his little walker or whatever this contraption is, and he immediately fires a chakra rod at Naruto. Naruto lets himself get hit. Now, granted, Nagato, even in this moment, he says, "Don't worry, I avoided hitting a vital spot for you are invaluable, Jinchuriki." Right? Now, Nagato does say he deliberately let me hit him, but also Nagato says, Nagato acknowledges that Naruto let him hit him, but also Nagato is like, I wasn't even really trying to kill you or anything like that, right? He fires one rod, thinking that he can gain control over him, not a barrage of them or anything like that. He doesn't try to summon the Ghetto Mazo or that like white dragon thing, right? He doesn't try to fire another chakra rod here. It looks like he actually closes up the aperture that shoots them out, right? And Conan kind of gets in the way. But despite all of that fact, you'll notice that his hair is red, which means he hasn't used the final jutsu that winds up draining his life force and turning his hair white, which of course is the art of Rinne Rebirth. So after everything we just talked about, everything he did, all the disadvantages he was at, and as long as he survived and as close as he came to victory multiple times, he still manages to use this final jutsu that then fully drains the last of his stamina, fully consumes the remainder of his life force to the point where it turns his hair from red to white. I forget where it is. I think it's like chapter 505 or something. But if you're curious about this, like why his hair is turning white here, Obito specifically says when he goes to get his the Rinnegan back, he says like, um, the you use so much chakra that the red hair, the pride of the Uzumaki, was turned white through the efforts or something like that. So it's like made explicit that the reason why this is happening is because he's draining his life force, right? So he still has enough to do that, and then he still survives for like a second to be able to continue conversing with him, right? So yeah, and kind of acknowledges his lack of divinity, lack of godhood, and now he's dead. So just to be clear, in this moment, presumably, Nagato himself still has access to Bancho Tenin and Shinra Tensei. In this moment, he still has access to Gakido, the Predapath. Now let's see what happens when a white-haired Nagato, who's like white-haired and chakra drained and like has limited mobility and stuff. Let's see what happens when he goes up and fights a Jinchuriki, arguably a stronger Jinchuriki, later in the series. He immediately like closes ranks with him. He baits an attack from Killer B. He immediately sucks off, his like chakra cloak, rips off the V2 cloak from him, immediately restores his chakra and his vitality, then immediately turns around and fucks up KCM Naruto, starts pulling out his soul. While he's actively pulling out KCM Naruto's soul and restraining him with the chameleon, while that's happening, he manages to absorb a Rasengan as it's coming in, a KCM Rasengan. While that's happening, he also summons the King of Hell and perceives via the chameleon and the King of Hell shared field of vision with the Rinnegan that B is coming in, grabs Killer B and holds him and restrains him with the Asura Path and begins charging up the Asura Path ability, right? It's actually really cool. In this exchange, Nagato himself uses all 6 paths simultaneously, which is actually really cool. Now, he does ultimately get damaged by Itachi coming in here, but Itachi has to essentially wait until Nagato is fully committed to these other 2 extremely high-level characters, and then comes and attacks him from a blind spot, like blinds the chameleon and the Naraka Path King of Hell thing beforehand in order to, basically limit the field of vision, and then he comes in and he saves them, but he doesn't, like, fully, like, he takes off Nagato's arm, right? He doesn't, like, chop his head off or anything like that. It's still impressive, but Itachi has to go through these extra steps to even make that attack possible, while Nagato's attention is diverted. Also, look at Naruto's face over here. So, I think that realistically, if Nagato himself was bloodlusted here, if he really wanted to, if he wanted Naruto dead, he could have used Bancho Tenin, just like he did earlier in the fight. Naruto doesn't have Sage Mode anymore. Pulled him in, stole his chakra, and used whatever remaining life force he has back onto Naruto. He could have ripped his soul out. He could have, like, paralyzed him with the human path. He could have just drained his chakra normally with the Predator path. He could have stabbed him with chakra rods, kept firing them at him. Like, he has other options. So if anybody ever tells you that Naruto killed the, like, Nagato, that factually didn't happen. Nagato sacrificed himself. If people tell you that Nagato beat Pain, it's much more nuanced than that. Yeah, he did kick his ass at times under very specific circumstances with a lot of prep and intel. And there were times when Nagato absolutely could have killed him. Is it fair to say that he defeated the 6 Paths of Pain? Yeah, basically, but with a lot of help and under very specific circumstances. If these 2 characters started off in base, just facing each other on a neutral playing field, and they both started off bloodlusted and they just went at each other with their strongest abilities, Sage Naruto would get his ass kicked. KCM Naruto would probably get his ass kicked too. Like, I think both of those characters are losing to a bloodlusted Nagato. Well, that's cool. Worm, I'm about to head out myself. I'm feeling kind of sick. So, yeah, I hope you have a great week. Thanks for stopping by. Take care. So, yeah. That was kind of what I was hoping to accomplish with this stream anyway. It's a good stopping point. I just wanted to, like, help to tip the scales a little bit in favor of, like, explaining the context of this fight. Is what Naruto does impressive? Absolutely. Is he one of the strongest characters in the series? Yeah, absolutely. At this point that we've seen, yes, absolutely. Is he a match for Pain in some regard? Sure. Is he relative to him in some regards? Sure. Does he at times have an advantage and accomplish genuinely impressive things? Absolutely. His most impressive accomplishments, in my opinion, are tactical, but that is not to say that like they're less cool because it's not just raw strength or whatever. It's actually more impressive to me that he manages to use the abilities that aren't necessarily like all that great themselves, like a smoke bomb and a fucking base Rasengan, or like a Senjutsu Rasengan, to defeat multiple paths, right? Like, that's great. He's coordinating with his teammates. He's a very effective shinobi, very talented warrior, so to speak. But Pain is like way, 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 way stronger than him. And he only wins because of a very, very specific set of circumstances. And so if you're going to just say, like, well, Pain is relative to Naruto's relative to Pain overall, and then use that as a basis for scaling in a debate or anything like that, highly recommend against it. Highly recommend going through and rereading these chapters for context, and hopefully that was a little bit helpful. Worth noting, Six Tails Bijou Bomb. Oh, how about No also says, by the way, for Sage Energy, recovering your stuff is 415, so he heals quicker also. Yeah, let's take a look at that. Thank you very much for that. And then I think I'm going to go make myself some tea and watch some cheesy movies and pass out. So let's see. Might actually be fun to do a stream about the Amaterasu. That's another thing that I think there's some misconceptions about. Let's see. In Ninjutsu Chakra, where you progressively tire because you're using up your internal energy. With Sage Jutsu Chakra, you're continuously taking in nature energy from outside, and you not only don't get tired, y'all recover and heal quicker too. Yeah, that's perfect. That's great. That's something that gets overlooked too, is that, like, if Naruto didn't have access to Sage mode, then he'd be fatiguing faster as well. And wouldn't be like replenishing as quickly between like when he's quote unquote resting. Yeah, so that's very helpful. So yeah, a bit of a shorter, less intense stream tonight, obviously, than last week for sure. But I think, you know, this kind of puts a nice cap on our previous discussion. And I'm kind of getting to the point with the Naruto streams where, like, I've gotten I'm very grateful in a sense, because I've gotten a chance to get a lot of stuff off my chest and share about a lot of topics that I find interesting. So I think for next week, I will plan like low-key probably plan to talk about the Amaterasu, but I will post a poll with a couple other suggestions. I think this is going to be stream 96, and I want to see if we can go to stream 100 for the Naruto stuff specifically, and then kind of go from there. So I'll be open to suggestions if you guys have any other topics or things that you want to dive into or revisit. I'm more than happy to hear that in the comments or in Discord. I'm going to head out for now, but thank you so much. Saria, good luck next week with the next chapter in your journey. Best to your sister and to your family and all that. And I will see you guys on Thursday for